everybody, we are live again today. This is Sun and Moon, and I'm still at Series. Anyway, so we're in Holland. It's Pyramid and Ancient Site Talk today, and on with us we have Patricia, we have Angel, and we have Artis. And I think Artis is going to start today. There's Angel. Hello, Angel. Hello, Angel.
Hey.
Artis is going to start today, aren't you, Artis?
Yeah, that's fine.
And so I think we're presenting a map which you've got, and you're going to talk about an island called Kefalonia. It's one of the Greek islands. There's a row of islands. There's Corfu, there's Lefas, Kefalonia, and Zante. There's some more islands as well, but those are the main big ones there. And on the, I suppose, what is it, the left side of Greece.
Yeah.
I forget what they're called because they're a set of islands and they're called something. But anyway, Artis is going to talk about Kefalonia.
Yeah.
Which is an island up from Zante. Anyway, over to you, Artis.
Thanks for the introduction, Karen. Nice.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, you can see over here, I wanted to present another mellitic structure on these islands. And as Karen already told, it's on the island of Kefalonia. And you can see the map over here. I put a circle around the island with an arrow, so you can actually see the surrounding countries like Turkey, Bulgaria, Albania, Yugoslavia. And this is actually the island of Kefalonia. And so you can see this, the darkest bits are the highest mountains, and then the orange bits are a little bit lower. And the green bits are the lowest parts of this island. And this is actually the site I'm going to talk about. I put an arrow here where it's actually the location. And this is basically where I'm going to talk about. It is a big wall over here. And this wall is built with very big stones. Most of the stones are about 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot. And the biggest ones are even a little bit bigger, 7 foot. Going to 8 foot almost. Sad enough, this wall is in a terrible shape. As you can see even on this picture, that the shape of the wall is all kinds of rocks are broken off and fall down in this on this hill. You can see actually a picture of the size of those stones. You get an estimate how big they are. Well, this one is basically 6 foot by 6 foot, but this one is maybe 8 foot by 8 foot. So those are very big stones, and they are all up a hill. So they have to carve these stones and get them all on this hill all the way, and then assemble them like this wall. The wall was probably higher, but I will get to that in a second. Most of the tourists never see this site because it's not on a tour guide. So you have to find out yourself when you're going to visit this place where actually the location is. So this, again, very little known about this this wall of mellitic stones. In my opinion, this building technique resembles that of the most mellitic sites in Peru and Bolivia, because I think they have the same kind of construction is being used with interlocking stones and stones carved in a shape that almost fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. I can show you really quick a picture of that. Those stones you can see. Even this line goes around and they fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. This part of the wall looks almost like a honeycomb with its hexagonal shapes. So this is again very interesting. There is a legend about this wall, and this legend of this big wall is about 3 miles wide long, and then you have a section going to the west of the island that is about 2 miles long. So it's a very big wall altogether. And the legend goes like this. Basically, This wall is called also the Cyclopean wall. So this is a one-eyed giant. So again, it was built by giants, and it's about this. They think it was built before that the Greek civilization started, because the Greek legends talk about these giants that built this wall. And again, it was built by a cyclops, this wall, and a giant cyclops. All the ancient legends talk about this cyclops that built this wall. Why they built this wall, there are speculations about. Some say that the giants lived in the higher part of the mountains and want to fence off their land because they were attacked by the other inhabitants from the surrounding islands. So that is basically the legend of this wall. And some historians and philosophers believed that they were built by a race of giants, that maybe there were cyclops, as I say, but it's a speculation. It's again, you can see it's a very old wall. Sad enough, there was a 1953 earthquake in Kefalonia, and it was 7.1 on the Richter scale, so it was a very big earthquake, and the center of the earthquake was very near this island, so it destroyed a lot of ancient structures over here, and also destroyed a huge part of this wall. Here you can see another picture of the wall and you can also see on the left they added some smaller stones, so at some point they tried to repair it, probably when this island was occupied by the Romans, because the Romans made this island part of their Reich, it's called in German. They're part of their whole land that the Romans had. Later they gave it back to Greece again. Here you can see another part of the wall. They've put in smaller stones, all kinds of almost jigsaws, puzzle-shaped rocks that fit together very tight. Because of the earthquake, you now can see a bit of gaps between them.
Empire.
You're muted.
Sorry?
No, you're not. Sorry. Whoops.
Empire is the word.
Yeah, thank you. It was part of the Roman Empire at some point. Thank you, Series. And it was when it was part of the Roman Empire, also the Romans took a lot of these stones to build their own temples. So again, in that time period, there was a lot of destroyed of these walls. Here you can see that it is actually built on an angle on the hill. And most of the rocks have fallen down. You can still see here is the wall going up the hill. Here you can see a view from how far the wall goes actually. It goes very far. And you can see also beside the structures, you can see here a road, but they built it just to walk there. So if you walk here, you must be very careful because there are a lot of loose stones, and it's very loose, all those stones. So if you visit this site, you must be very careful that you don't fall down. Go with a group. That's the best thing to do. Here again, you can see the wall going all the way in the distance over here, and over in the mountain in the back, you can see the wall still. So it goes up and down and up and down. So it was very skilled builders that they built this wall, because it's very hard to build this on an angle on the wall. And that's why some of the stones are shaped a little bit different, because they had to build it on the angle of the wall. Here you can see some of the stones close up. You can see that most of the stones that didn't move by the earthquake fit together very tight. Most of the people who visit the site tell that the stones fit together so tight that you can't even put a credit card between them. Here you can see the state the wall is in. It's in very bad state. They didn't do any reconstruction on the wall. It was like it's like been this like many years after the earthquake. They didn't do any repairs on the wall. So sad enough. You can see sometimes you see the wall in the background. You see those small fundaments of buildings still that there were around this wall, but what kind of buildings, it's not known. Basically, there's nothing known about this site, only that ancient story of giants building this wall. And you can see the wall in the distance going up the hill. I have another one from a land. You can see the wall going all the way over this hill. And they use some stones that fall down the hill to actually make some walls in the land. So they reuse some stones. Again, here you can see on the left side a better photo of that section. They try to rebuild with smaller stones. It's at a point of time in history they tried to repair this wall. Again, you have a picture from high up a mountain. You can actually see how far this wall goes. You can see here are some things sticking out the wall, just like in a Chinese wall. Those shapes that point outwards. Now I have to go to some pictures. You can actually see some pictures of the wall, and that it's in horrible state. I hope that someday they will reconstruct it or make this a little bit more visible. And it's in so bad of a state. It's very sad. I have to go to some pictures. Oh yeah, over here. You can here see that fitting of the stones in like a jigsaw puzzle. This stone goes on an angle all the way on top. I put it with a blue marker so you can actually see how strange some of the stones are. This is on an angle. This is like an S-shaped. So they shaped all the stones before they put it on the wall. So none of these stones have the same size or shape. They're all different and they fit together perfectly. So they had a high knowledge of constructing these walls. And again, an ancient civilization, just like in Peru and Bolivia and Egypt. They have great knowledge of building and lifting those stones and make a wall of it. So it's again ancient high technology they used. Here again you can see a better picture of those interlocking stones. And probably they did this way of shaping the stones and putting them together like this to make them earthquake proof, because there was a big earthquake on this island, near this island. And still most of the walls are still like they were when they were constructed. So that proves that they are earthquake proof to some degree. And again, all those stones are fitted together without any mortar between them.
Yeah, I'd have to say that bit about the earthquake's true, because I've been to Kefalonia, and in the 1950s, or maybe it was the early 60s, I can't remember now, 50s, early 60s, they did have this massive earthquake on Kefalonia.
I thought it was 1953.
There you go, I was right, 50 then. Just covering myself there. But yeah, so it destroyed a lot of the stuff that was there in the buildings, so to rebuild it. Now, carry on, sorry.
Yeah. Great edit to the things. Thank you, Karen, for that. Again, you can see another part of this wall. You can see those walls are very straight, very level, even though there was an earthquake. You can still see on the right side over here. Zoom in a bit. It's very, and also fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And then later added some smaller stones to it, very rough with mortar. It doesn't. It's not very done very in a very great way. It's just very simple building like this. So they, in some time period, they tried to reconstruct it, but it was done very poorly. And what I also wanted to point out, you can see those bigger stones at the bottom. And if you look close to them, I will point it out and highlight it like this. You can see that this stone has an outward thing, and this is an inward thing. And you can see on this shape that those stones could fit together at one point. This stone fits exactly on that stone. This one is very smooth. It almost looks like it was machined smooth with a diamond drill or something, or diamond saw. It was very, very smooth. So they had the high technology tools to actually carve these stone and make them fit together, just like they did in Bolivia and Peru and Egypt. You can see a great example on how steep the wall is, how an angle they have to build these walls on. It's a great craftsmanship that you can actually build on this angle. And with these big blocks, you have to bear in mind that those blocks, most of them are 6 feet by 6 feet by 3 or 4 feet. And some of them are bigger. They are 7 feet by 7 feet by 4 feet. So they are very big stones, and actually build this on an angle in just a so precise way. And again, all those stones have different shapes and different sizes. Not one stone is the same shape. So it's a great craftsmanship they used on this island. Again, you can see it from a distance. Sad enough, most of the stones are, by the last earthquake in the 50s, all fallen down this mountain. And that was the presentation of this huge wall that is about 3 miles from north to south. Then in the middle it has a wall going all the way to the west, and that's about 2 miles. So altogether it's about 5-6 miles of wall built on this island. If you have any questions in the chat, you can ask them. I will be glad to.
Yeah, any questions from the chat?
Questions from the chat. Yeah, Sirius was just saying that's a very steep wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
Thing is, you'll never know on Kefalonia now, because the earthquake obviously destroyed masses of information. And you're just seeing the moments of... And that's, something else you want to talk about, which happened where there was a cave and the roof popped in. It dropped in with the earthquake.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's the next time, guys.
The next time I can show you. I can show you one picture to make you curious.
I've been there. I've been to this place in Kefalonia.
Yeah, but Catherine has to. I show you one picture.
Woo.
So next Sunday we're going to talk about this cave, but that's for next Sunday.
Yeah, and that water looks unreal. The color of that water the blue is just absolutely amazing. And whenever they take pictures of the boat on the water, it looks like it's been CGI'd, but it hasn't. It's actually just the color of the water. It's just this most amazing blue. Anyway,
there is a question. How much do you think each one weighs? And then stones.
Oh, yeah, the stones are all the different sizes. So I think one stone, you have to bear in mind that you don't know exactly where the stone is made of. But if you have a normal rock and you have the measurements, well, basically most of the stones are about 5 to 7 tons each. But they are bigger. There are some stones, I think the biggest stones are almost 25 tons. And maybe the lightest ones are 2 tons. There's between 2 and 10 tons. Because most of the stones are all different sizes and shapes.
Artist, that was Jerry B. He asked that one. But Flat Forest asks, are these massive stoneworks very ancient, or could they possibly be... Are they ancient, or are they more like 300 years old?
No, they're the Greek philosophers and talked about this structure that it already was ancient. So before the civilization of Greeks started, those stones were already there. So how old they are, they don't know, but the Greek philosophers tell old stories about giants putting them together. So it's very old. It's older than the Greek civilization, that's for sure. Because even the Greeks didn't know what civilization built these stones. There's no written history about this civilization. Only philosophers and ancient stories talk about these walls. So it could be, they don't know how old it is, but it's before, way before the Greek civilization.
Well, while we're waiting for more questions, Angel, what do you think of the wall? Artist, put it back to the wall.
I'm thinking I want to go swimming in that pit.
Lovely water, because that water in that cave is seawater, and then it goes through all the land and the minerals, and it comes out as very fresh water.
No, I am always impressed by many of the monolithic structures and creations. I mean, I've already said there's a book, Dead Men's Secrets, that just goes through thousands of things that are out of place artifacts, and it's just by knowing what does exist on the planet, it really helps to more put yourself in mind with what has occurred on this planet or plane or Earth or whatever you want to, whatever word you want to say.
Planet means plane. Planet.
Well, yeah, but by sticking the "et" at the end, it kind of gives you a circle.
It's the illusion.
When somebody says planet, you're thinking spherical, as opposed to plane,
Plane circle, you mean.
which
Plane circle. In a sense, Santos had also the plane of inertia,
Right.
kind of connected to the plane of Earth.
I'm trying everywhere I can to lose the globe word, except for when I'm talking about globalists, and to lose the planet word when I'm talking about Earth, terra firma, because, you know, they just don't fit.
Terra firma.
Yeah, that is where, you know, the word terra firma, that is Earth. Earth solid.
So what do you think about the wall then?
I think.
I know what you think about the water.
I personally would think that if they did some testing on it, I think if they start doing testing on many of these monolithic structures, they're going to find out that many of these are poured and or fabricated as opposed to quarried, which could compensate for why they fit so well together. And I think they built them in their funky patterns just so that they would dog tooth in and stuff like that, so they would survive earthquakes and stuff. But that's how I look at it. But really, that takes somebody taking a little, you know, chunk of it and doing some testing on it. You need to look for obscure fine metal particulates, bubbles, and or water infused within the rock. And all of those will show you, demonstrate that they're fabricated. But I mean, it shows a level of technology above what we give them credit for, above what taught history gives them credit for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Angel.
Angel.
I think just the same like you do. I think even those stones over here look in the detail, look poured, because they have those lines over here. This over here.
Artist, there's a couple of more questions for you. It's from Jerry B again. He was saying, did you actually find that the wall was square or round, or was it just a straight wall?
It's I can show you the wall if you have some time, I can pop it up on Google, and you can see it's built on an angle. It's not straight. It's just round shaped, and some parts are missing. But I can quickly see if I can find it on maps. If you just have a second.
Kind of while you're looking at it on maps, does it form any structures kind of like the Nazca lines do, where they draw a picture even if it's just circles and squares and stuff, as opposed to bugs and trees?
Yeah, it's... Well, the wall doesn't fit with the mountains. It's just like they build it like the mountains weren't there. So that's very interesting.
Oh. He's going up the wall. Oh, you mean because of the line of the wall? It's like they built it out, but they don't care about the land at all, sort of thing. Is that what you mean?
Yep.
Huh.
I have to start here.
Yeah, I was noticing where the top of the wall looked to be at a common elevation, where the ground it is upon is not.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's saying it might be. Jerry again says it looks like it might be part of a castle.
No, it isn't. It's way. It's way too. It's more like the Chinese wall. It's way too long. But I have found I hope I can present this in the Hangout.
It kind of
works.
Castle next to it. But...
Yeah. There are some Roman fortresses surrounding this structure, but they don't look anything like this. I hope this works. Can you see my screen?
Hang on, artist. There you go. He's putting the picture back for everyone to see.
Okay, here's the wall. It has indeed the shape of a castle, because you have those things sticking out, but it's more like a Chinese. You can also see here is the wall also going over in that direction. But it goes. It's not built on a straight line, so it's going. It's going here. Here you have some sort of entrance, but it could be possible they built that in a later stadium.
Is it all at one elevation where it could have been a huge dam?
No, it's going up and down the mountain.
Okay.
So this place is much lower. This is lower, and then it goes up to the mountain. Yeah, you can't see the elevation in maps, but it goes up and down the mountains. So it's sometimes it's almost on ground level. Sometimes it's way, and here it stops for some strange reason. Yeah, it stops. Then here again you have a piece of it. Here, this almost looks. Well, you have the terracing system, so it's just a small part still of it.
Several walls, it seems.
But maybe here you can clearly see they rebuilt with that wall. They have a lot of forest over here, so sometimes here it goes back to the wall again. But what is interesting that another part of you can see. We can locate it again. Come on. Here you can see one branch going in another direction all the way over here.
Oh, did you see any electrical arcing on that island?
Oh, those electric, no, not till this point. And also here, I hope I can find it. You have another side branch of the wall. Oh yeah, over here. Look, here it goes again. This is also part of that wall. If you go to over here, it stops, but you can also see here on the trees. So maybe
Is it a kind of city wall or something?
they don't know, because the highest point in this valley is not the highest point is not over here. This is actually, it is a hill. It's not even considered a mountain, I believe. But if you have the highest mountains are over here, these are really high mountains.
Sometimes they do put walls round fortresses, though, don't they?
No, so this over here, it's near the coastline, and this wall. Can you see my arrow?
Yeah.
The wall basically goes like this shape over here. Then it goes here a bit. Then it goes here a bit. Then it goes here a bit, all the way to over here.
Oh, it's like they're actually shutting off one part of the island or something.
I hope I can find the part over here, but it's very hard to find that last part. But there is a part over here somewhere. It's mostly in the trees, but it's located somewhere. Oh yeah, over here. I found a piece of it. This isn't very good pictures on the maps, but here the walls also. It's a piece of the wall. Only it goes up here, goes up here, till this place. So there are too many trees over here, but it basically goes. You can see it here, and it goes all the way to here, and then it's gone again. And then sometimes you have to scroll a bit, and then you can find pieces of the wall again. But this is basically on the other. This is over here. You can see a small part where I pulled it out here. You have a small part of the wall. And if you zoom out, you can see that it's all the way over here. And here is the rest of the wall. So that's a very long distance between them. But there aren't a lot of pictures about this wall. The pictures I showed are basically all the pictures I could find about from this wall. So there aren't a lot of pictures because it's not in a tourist guides, this wall. So you have to know about it exactly to find it and visit it. And it's in bad shape, and maybe they're between this point and this point. Between those 2 points are more parts of the wall, but they're very hard to find. I hope that answers your question.
I hope so, for
I can basically see that red point in it.
yeah.
Over there, between there is also parts of the wall, but there aren't a lot of pictures around. I could basically I could find 4 channels that actually had pictures of these walls. So there aren't much around.
Yeah, it's kind of they chopped the island in half.
Yeah. Well, even these kinds of walls, if you stretch it.
Can I say something? Can I say something? If you go to Udinese in Turkey, there's a ghost Greek town there. So they're always conquering each other, Greece and Turkey. So maybe it's something to do with that.
Well, it could be, because, and even in Italy, you have parts of you have walls that look a little bit like this, but they aren't as long as these are. And you have to see if those walls goes all the way across this island. Well, it's only this section is 3 miles, and that section is about 2 miles. So all the way around, yeah, maybe if you add everything together, you end up with, well, I can measure it a bit. You end up with about 7 miles of wall. So that's a very long wall altogether, maybe longer.
True.
And
Yeah,
what series I already said before we went live, it's also, it looks a little bit like the wall in China at some points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you never know, maybe the Chinese conquered this land way back and built a wall just like in China, only this wall is in such a bad shape that it's just all ruined all the way. But one positive thing about it, that this wall isn't known, that you can visit it for free.
Yay!
And also, it's a funny side note. Maybe Trump can learn something about building a wall from this side, so he can build a wall without mortar in America and build it a lot cheaper than it actually costs.
Yeah, with salt water.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to build a wall, guys, or you want to build a house or anything
Anything that was
you
concrete.
want to build it with salt water, okay?
Yeah.
Seawater.
Yeah.
Well, concrete mixed with seawater.
Anything you want to build in the garden, any patios, anything, build it with salty water, seawater.
Yeah, it makes the concrete much stronger.
That one simple thing, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, indeed.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I guess there is also several trickery with polymers from certain areas, but yeah, basically the main ingredient, salt water. The salt itself is actually sustaining the concrete way better that it is even workable on sea. It's such. It just doesn't degrade because the salt is already there. It's not that the salt is actually trying to break it down because the lack of salt in there.
Did everybody hear that? Did you hear that, artist? Just making sure, because Sirius was sitting a long way from the microphone. Yeah, so seawater. And like, what it is it just crosses my mind when they've built those dams with concrete that they use seawater. Well, let's just hope they did. Artist, is there anything else you want to say on your wall?
No, that is basically it. It's always people can do more research themselves, but I was try to present sites that are lesser known in the world, and actually show the people that there are a lot of ancient sites that they won't teach you at school, that there are those ancient sites, and they tell you a made-up story or story that doesn't fit the structure. And I present these ancient monolithic sites just to show you how many of those sites are actually on the earth, because there are a lot, and that they also often are built with the same ancient technology and the same type of building skill. So it's very it's a great thing that
and just more about the world that you don't know. And you're next week going to do the one about the well, it's turned into sort of cave, isn't it, with the roof off? But it was a cave anyway, but the roof's caved in. I forget what it's called now. Artist, what's it called? What's it called?
At the top of my head, but it's basically a cave on this island, and in the 90 in half of the 50s, there was an earthquake around 1953, and actually the ground caved in, and they found a cave caved beneath the bottom, and that cave is it's very spectacular, and it has they also found ancient artifacts in the cave that look a lot like they were made look a lot like Egyptian artifacts. So that's very interesting. But I have to do a little bit more research about that to actually present a good presentation about it.
Yay! And that's next. Well, yeah, we're going to do it next Sunday. Are we doing it next Sunday? We're doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine with me next Sunday.
Yeah, because Angel won't be here next Sunday, will you, Angel? Where's Angel?
Sorry, I keep myself muted, so I have to constantly keep unmuting. No, I have plans for next Sunday. Doing a physical in-person meetup thing, hopefully.
That's good, though. Artis has been talking about Kefalonia. Have you been looking into anything this last week, then?
Well, I put those links in the chat thing.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have a question for Angel.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Maybe it's all bogus or something, but I found some videos and some people who tell about a second Sphinx being there on the Giza Plateau.
A second what?
A second Sphinx on the Giza Plateau.
Okay.
If you have the Sphinx, like we know it, the location where we have now, just above the Sphinx we know in the north, you have an area that is not excavated. It's a little bit hilly. And someone showed some photos they made with sonar. And basically, you could see the shape of another Sphinx beneath the ground. Maybe it's a made-up story or something, but I saw it on a couple of YouTube YouTube channels. They talked about there being a second Sphinx on the Giza Plateau.
Well, if you want to send me a link, I'll be happy to look at it.
Okay.
Any video you find, I'll be happy to look at them. Especially if they have sonar pictures, video, things like that. Even like the one John or Jean Deporté or whatever it is, the one that the French guy half a decade ago that did a documentary on how he feels the structure was constructed. They use, I think it was infrared that they took a picture of, where you can see kind of like zones on the surface of the structure. I think what they're looking at is the static electricity, which is still ambient on the structure today. But I look at those and I realize they are a picture. They are evidence of something, but I don't agree with him that they're an internal staircase per se, because I don't think they're distinct enough. But still, I look at all images and I just, Occam's razor, I got to put them all together, and what one says isn't true, then I have to exclude it out based on the evidentiary information. That's kind of the way I work.
Deducing the possibilities.
Didn't hear that.
You're deducing everything in the possibilities there are. Yeah?
I've actually found a video.
Well, when I'm Artis, Angel sent us a couple of videos to play. So series is just going to play them, and then you can play yours.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I just put it in a link, so I hope Angel can see it in the group chat.
Oh yeah, second Sphinx. Huh? Okay.
And Angel, you sent us these videos. So what's the reason for sending the videos before we play them? He's muted. You're muted.
I was copying and pasting the other link and I couldn't get back to the Hangout. They are showing repeatable scientific experiments showing the differential between ground energy and a higher plane energy, kind of like what Tesla said. And they are repeatable. The two different people using a like type device to show work. Like, have you guys seen where you get what looks like a light bulb, and you put fins of metal, one side painted black, the other side reflective, and you just put it in the sun, and it'll start to turn all by itself. It's just that nature has energy all over the place. We just, because it's so little trickle amounts of energy, we kind of ignore it. But this works on trickle amounts of electricity, and go ahead and watch what it does.
Hi gang, here's my corona motor running on atmospheric electricity. There's just a wire extending up from the corona motor high up into the air. It took a few tries and the enormous help of a friend with a large enough hexacopter willing to lift the wire up. And as you can see, it works. The motor is called a corona motor and is an electrostatic type of motor. Atmospheric electricity isn't powerful enough to run an electromagnetic motor, the type you encounter every day. Wire is connected from the earth ground to one side of the corona motor. Another wire is connected to the other side of the corona motor and goes up into the sky around 120 meters or 390 feet up. The top end of the wire goes to 6 sharp points made of 6 sewing pins. The fishing line, around 4 meters or 13 feet long, goes from there up to the hexacopter. That's to minimize or eliminate any effect the hexacopter might have on the atmospheric electricity. It took a couple of trips out to large fields to work out all the kinks. Here's setting it up on the first trip, starting with the corona motor. For a ground connection, we pushed some thick copper wires into the ground, and then connected a wire between that and one side of the corona motor. Another wire was connected to the other side of the corona motor. That one will go to the wire that will be lifted into the sky. The wire that will be lifted into the sky starts out on this spool, with a hand crank for winding it back up afterward. The next step was to connect the other end of that coil of wire to the sharp-pointed part. The connection is made of this white plastic piece. Here I'm connecting a part with just 2 sharp points, but later we switched to using the part with 6 sharp points, with the theory that the more sharp points there are, the higher the electrical current will be. Notice the fishing line that's also attached to the white plastic piece. With the hexacopter sitting upside down on the ground, the other end of that fishing line is tied to the bottom of the hexacopter's frame. And here we all are making final preparations for liftoff, and then liftoff. Here's the hexacopter hovering at just 21 meters or 70 feet before rising higher still, and then we continue rising. Notice that we're using 26 gauge enamel-coated wire. To meet the safety guidelines here in Ottawa, Canada, the hexacopter has been programmed to go no higher than 90 meters or 300 feet, which it reaches in probably under a minute. Once the hexacopter is hovering around 90 meters or 300 feet, I connect the other end of the spool of wire to the wire that I connected earlier to one side of the corona motor. You can see there's still plenty of wire left on the spool. The cylinder on the corona motor should now start turning, but it doesn't. I try various adjustments. I do get shocks though when I touch the high voltage parts. The smaller pinwheel type corona motor might turn with this voltage and charge, but not this large one. We try 4 attempts altogether before all the spare hexacopter batteries are discharged, and we call it a day. For the second trip, we put the corona motor up on a plastic crate to get any high voltage parts away from the ground. The first try is with some plastic insulated wire this time. To improve the ground connection, we pour water around the ground wire, wetting the ground. I even use myself as part of the ground. But on the first and second tries, and with all the adjusting and fiddling, the corona motor cylinder still doesn't turn. Here's the third try before liftoff. Notice that we're using the 6-pointed part at the top of the wire for these attempts. Also, the plastic insulated wire turned out to be only 70 meters or 230 feet long. So we switched back to the enamel insulated wire. But shortly after liftoff, we have a break in a connection at the spool. Okay, we'll come back down, we disconnected. On the fourth try, and with our last set of batteries, it works. Oh. Hey! It's working. There isn't much torque here, since a light touch on the shaft will stop it. It doesn't keep running though. It seems to stop abruptly at times. The shock is much more painful this time. I soon realized the problem is that one of the cylinders is too close to some nuts and bolts inside at this end, and sometimes touches. Once I pull it away, it works great. That was the last kink worked out.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice.
Oh, let's give you lots of ground. So why did it work on this try? Looking at the hexacopter's data afterward, we saw that something went wrong with the programmed height limits, and it had gone as high as 120 meters, or 390 feet up. With atmospheric electricity, more height means higher voltage, and possibly there were more ions at that height too. But since that's above the 90-meter or 300 feet limit, that ended the experiments with this corona motor. But we did succeed in our goal of powering an electrostatic motor using atmospheric electricity. Well, thanks for watching. See my YouTube channel for more interesting videos like this. That includes one on how this powering with atmospheric electricity works, one showing this corona motor turning much faster and with much more torque using high voltage power supplies. And sort of related, one about a gravity light that powers LEDs using a falling mass. And don't forget to subscribe if you like these videos, or give a thumbs up, share with your social media.
What I wanted to point out in that, and the reason that I picked that one, there are shorter versions of it that actually go into more follow the dot type things. But it shows how if there's anywhere where it can arc or short out, as he pointed out, it will. Electricity will take the path of least resistance, which is part of the reason why the structure, the Giza pyramid, is engineered the way it is engineered, is to keep the two differentials separated until you get them into the Queen's chamber where you give it the path of least resistance. But that's either way, but this really just demonstrates that there is energy up above us, and we just ignore it because it's trickle amounts.
Potential differential is there, so you can actually connect those two through your wires and make your own circuit.
Yes.
Yeah, ground and air.
Or if you had like a copper roof, you could do like electroplating and or making your own colloidal silver. But all that, people had copper roofs before people knew what electricity was, so they just wasted their money, I guess.
Yeah. Kind of. The second video is also the same kind of thing, or something else?
Yeah, go ahead. It's another person that actually made a more industrial version.
What?
Yeah, it's running along in a good clip in there. Okay, so here's version 2.0 of the electric static motor that I'm going to be testing. And it's very simple in design. The only reason it's in this enclosed housing is to protect it from the wind. And a quick update on the crystal cells. This morning it's in the teens. And that's Fahrenheit. So it's just been freezing cold. These things are frozen solid. But they're working here. And these, I'm going to, as soon as it warms up, it's just been too cold to build these lately, but I'm going to build the rest of these to make the 15-volt crystal cell pack. Okay, so this is version 2.0 of the atmospheric electricity-powered electrostatic motor. And I've got the line running up to my hexacopter. And man, it is just running this motor along. Nice. Look at that. Very, very smooth. So very encouraging results so far. Same setup as before. I have the sky, which is the positive, coming into this side. It's not actually touching anywhere in the electrostatic motor. And then I've got the negative ground connected over here. So positive from the sky, negative to the ground, and that motor is just running along just fine. You can see the hexacopter is still climbing a little bit. Now the reason I'm using the hexacopter, folks, is because it's cheaper than helium and other things for me at this point. I have a GPS lock on my hexacopter, so I can just park it in the sky and do tests. And very, very fascinating. So that's it, running along. So yeah, the next step, I want to create a small transformer, a step-down transformer and a spark gap, and see what I can do with that. But anyway, very encouraging. So I just want to demonstrate my electric static generator. At this point, I don't own a Van de Graaff generator. I haven't built anything like that. So I'm using a piece of PVC pipe and a silk scarf. That's all you need to test electric static motors. So I've got the ground line coming down here to the ground. The positives up here to this little wire, which is acting as a collector. And then the motor. So let me just show you how easy it is to create some electrostatic electricity to test the motor. So I'm just going to rub the pipe here, and you can see almost instantly that motor starts spinning. And that's a wireless electrical field coming off the PVC pipe and being collected and brought down to the motor. So very simple way to create some static electricity. PVC pipe, piece of silk cloth, and you've got all you need to test electrostatic motors. So there's been some discussion in the comments on the YouTube video threads about whether this is being powered by radio stations and their electricity they broadcast through the air. So unless your radio station is broadcasting with Van de Graaff generator with electrostatic electricity, it's much more likely that it's the naturally occurring atmospheric electricity that Benjamin Franklin tapped into with his kite that's been well documented and well tested through the years. So just want to make a point on that. You can see the construction of this particular motor. There's 4 strips of aluminum foil. I'm using aluminum heating duct tape. It's adhesive on one side for that. So I just cut and glued down 4 strips along the rotor. I've got these little points cut in the aluminum foil on this side and this side. And the whole thing is making no contact at any point. So this rotor is completely free spinning. There's no contact on either of these strips. But if you read any of the books that talk about electrostatic motors, you can come up with all of these basic building principles. Okay, so one other quick book review. Since my last video, I ordered another book from Amazon, and this one's called Electrostatic Experiments by G.W. Francis. And the reason I got this book is I was researching Dr. Oleg Jefamenko, and he edited this book. In 2004, you can read here about what he did in the edit. This is a very rare book, and it's really hard to get a hold of, but he went ahead and he just clarified a few of the words. Some of the words that are used in this book are no longer used in the English language, etc. So he did a few things to bring it up to date. But this book, folks, this is probably by far my favorite book out of any of the books I currently own on electrostatics. Really fascinating stuff here. A lot of this stuff I've never seen or heard of in any other book. So really enjoying this particular book. There's a whole chapter in this book, and I didn't realize it when I bought it, but there's a whole chapter in here on atmospheric electricity. So very pertinent to my current research. And this book is written in a very old style of English. And it's really fun to read in some ways because of that. But and Dr. Oleg Jefamenko tried to clarify anything that would be too misleading. Let me just read a portion of this book here to give you an idea of what you're getting into with this book. And this really cracked me up. I thought this was hilarious. In this book, they call electricity a fluid a lot of times, and a electrical experimenter or an electrical engineer a philosopher. So I'll kind of give you a heads up. All right, so let me just give you a quick reading of a paragraph here and show you the quality stuff that's in this book. And the way this is written is really fun to read today, looking back on it. So check this out. This is talking about the electric kite, you know, harvesting atmospheric electricity with a kite. And it says here, no philosophical instrument is more simple in form and easy to construct than the electric kite. Yet no one needs more care in its management. To fly it when a thunderstorm is approaching would be attended with the greatest danger, unless every precaution be taken. In this state of the atmosphere, the rising and lowering of the kite requires the utmost circumspection. To let the string wind out immediately from the ball in the hand, making thereby the body part of the conductor, is too venturesome. The string should pass over and touch an iron railing, or through a ring fastened to a metal rod driven deeply into the ground, whilst the person who holds it is placed upon a dry, glass-legged stool, or otherwise insulated, for example, upon a pile of books or paper. When upon a sufficient height, the remainder of the string may be fastened to a key, and the operator is then able to remove himself to a safe distance. It is advisable also that the electric fluid should never be introduced into a dwelling house for a thunderific agent to tamper with, and once invited into our house, may occasion dreadful damage ere it be allied. Quality stuff here, folks. And man, those old-time experimenters, those guys were a whole nother league in an adventurous spirit and a very inquisitive mind. And they tried all kinds of stuff and really, really enjoying this book. So just thought I'd mention that. Check it out, Electrostatic Experiments. I'll include the link to this book and anything else at laserhacker.com. I'll go ahead and add to my last post on atmospheric electricity, include the link to this book, and maybe some stuff on how to build electrostatic motors. And like I said earlier, I'm going to go ahead and try to come up with a design for a 3D printed electrostatic motor. I'm going to start to research the antennas. I've heard reports of electrostatic motors running from 20-foot antennas. So rather than just running a line up in the air in my hexacopter with no antenna to speak of, I'm going to go ahead and start creating some really needle point arrangements on an antenna and see if I can't bring in the atmospheric electricity at a much lower elevation with some PVC pipe antennas. So anyway, I'm going to keep experimenting with all this. As soon as it warms up, I'll get back to building the rest of my 15-volt crystal cell. It's just been too cold lately, so let's all keep experimenting and sharing what we find.
What?
Awesome. Awesome.
Awesome.
What?
Now, had you known about this prior to today?
Sorry?
Say that again?
The knowledge, the ability, like physical experimentation showing that there is power all around us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've followed these type of studies a little longer already, especially the antenna stuff.
Because when I try to talk to people about
Tesla's patterns as well. So
when I try to talk to people about the pyramid, and I tell them there's energy up there. That's how lightning happens. And you also point out, or he pointed out, if Benjamin Franklin did the experiment the way Benjamin Franklin is dictated to have done the experiment, which is opposite of kind of what that book shows, because you don't want to be part of the circuit, which is what they say Benjamin Franklin did. And I tell you, he would have been dead. They kept your mind focused on large amounts of electricity and away from trickle amounts, because there's trickle amounts of electricity all around us, and they really don't want you to know that. Nowadays, we have capacitors. We can take that trickle amount, pool it together, and make it a larger amount. And this gentleman like that guy who's doing physical experimentation, I'm sure soon will come out with something, an antenna you can stick in your backyard and charge your cell phone for free without the use of a cell phone or with a solar panel or something like that. And then somebody else will amplify it up, and before you know it, we'll probably have houses running on it. There was a gentleman in the mid
that had the same idea with the dropper system, where you can create a spark and catch the spark actually in a capacitor.
Right.
It's 60,000, but it's a lot of.
He's working on. He's got a motor there, but if you have a motor, you can also capture the electricity as opposed to just expending it. Right there, he's just expending it to show that it's there. But if it's there, you can catch it. That's what capacitors are for. Leyden jars, batteries, blah, blah, blah. So
from the capacitor to the battery. From the system into the capacitor, and from the capacitor into the battery.
Right. Which I believe is what my favorite structure here was doing. But people don't believe me when I tell them, look, there's power out there. And they look at me like, no, there isn't. I'm like, this is documentation that there's power out there. Repeatable, experimentable power. And it's there for the taking.
Angel, I think I've said this before, but I've met someone who's living in this elderly people complex, and she was telling me that they draw the electricity from the ground. I didn't want to go into it with her because I wasn't there for that, so I just listened to her talk about it. And she said that I couldn't be there to ask her loads of questions. It wasn't the place. But she just explained that they went down to a certain level under the ground. There's heat there, and in that heat is all this electricity.
Oh, well, yeah, especially in Holland and stuff, they do a bunch of this.
About taking it from the ground.
Geothermal energy.
We were taking it from the ground.
Yeah, the thermal stuff.
Yeah.
The same idea as, wasn't that the same car builder? The free energy guy with these particular large areas he had outside the door, and then inside he has a kind of pressure system where through the heat, actually what was drawn out of the atmosphere got really compressed or something, where the heat actually went extreme enough to tap in that particular heat system, and that cooled down. And then
why we make Freon illegal, right? Freon boils.
What?
Freon boils at, I think, 60 degrees or something like that. 40 degrees? I think it was 40 or 60 degrees. I think it was 40. But that's in most of the planet. Said it again. Most of the Earth we live on, that is, normal temperature is above that. So no matter where you are, except for on top of a hill or something, Freon will boil at ambient temperature. So you could utilize that. There was a gentleman who just utilized that fact instead of like how we throw coal into something to boil the water to turn a turbine. Nature to boil the Freon to turn a turbine, and then that would, since you're using nature, the turbine would create the energy that would actually be used to compress it. So you kind of had to kickstart the unit. But once it was doing, nature was applying enough energy to boil the Freon, and the compressor would be compressing it, and they actually developed an energy source. And he was using that. He just said you can use this to heat your house even in cold winter, cold. So Freon, somebody look up where Freon boils. It's some unbelievably low temperature. It's above freezing point of water, but a normal temperature like 50 or something. So at 60 degrees, you could use the Freon to heat your house just by letting nature give you the heat from outside, just like it is.
Yeah, heat transfer.
If you have a match and you're holding a match in your hand and you have a tub of water that's room temperature, the tub has more heat than that match, even though the temperature of the match is higher. There's more energy in the pool. So everything has to do with the energy. If you take away the heat source, it would all go down. So which one has the more energy? And the Freon is getting the energy from outside because there's heat outside, even though it's cold for us. You go outside, ooh, it's cold, but there's still, the Freon would boil, and it was free energy. So because of this, and because he publicized it, they made Freon illegal. And now we use something that doesn't boil at ambient temperature. You actually kind of have to compress it a little more. So, it's just every time you do something, I told you about the car, we showed how you could drive across the country by vaporizing your gasoline, and they came out with injection engines in our car. And then you show how you could add a hydrogen fuel cell, and poof, they came out with, electronics in there that won't let you do that. It's like everything you try to do, they give you handcuffs and tell you it's for your safety or fuel efficiency.
Yeah, everything in the mining control is just killed. It's, we know it's just sick.
If we went backwards and we used a carburetor, much simpler than fuel injection, and we used a vaporizer, we would get much better fuel efficiency if we stuck with petrol. If we went with, I'm not a super duper fan of electricity because the battery has a nasty end of life. I am honestly more a fan of compressed air. I think I already pointed that out to you. But people in their egos like high torque, and that's where battery and petrol give you higher torque. But I am a fan of cracking cars, putting hydrogen fuel cells into cars. But I think we should work on making a more efficient engine. But like I said, all the engine upgrades were kind of a handcuff to stop somebody else's idea, because I believe that oil has always been a way of controlling. And
patents are not there to protect the maker or the idea. It's just to be able to steal it from you.
Yep.
And actually make the big corporations the owners of the idea, so they can actually rule out anyone who wants to make it for themselves. Even that.
Yeah,
no matter if you actually come on the idea yourself and figure it out yourself, it's kind of illegal within the corporation. And as long as we are corporate entities.
Yeah, it's a big mind game.
Ourselves within the corporation system, we keep actually undermining ourselves. And that's how I figured everyone wants to go public with it, kind of wants a sort of company what produces the product so everyone can buy. But that part is actually where they kill the whole thing. Actually sharing the idea so everybody, instead of being dependent on getting a fish, learn how to fish.
Yes.
And catch shells. That's the only thing what will work. Just for building the new system in that sense. You can't break down the old. You can only build a new one and leave the old for what it is. It will destroy itself eventually. So. It's all about sharing this information so that people can actually understand it themselves and do it themselves. And get out of this.
The great reasons I like videos like that, because if somebody can say, "Oh no, that ain't real," and they can try it for themselves, because it is a repeatable thing. You can even just fly a drone up there with a big long 30 gauge wire and just make a spark every now and then when you're touching the ground. It'll just make one spark every now and then because it has to recharge, and you can do it. It's kind of like the same thing, walking across the rug and touching the doorknob. Walk across the rug, touch the doorknob. You just have to regenerate, let it. It's just a little spark. It's not going to be a lot. You're not going to arc weld with it, but it's a little spark forever. That's the thing that you don't get. It's one little spark every like 30 seconds or something. It's just
in a way they deliver you free energy in your home.
Yeah.
50 hertz in my case, a 50 hertz 220 volt system, but the 50 hertz itself creates such an EMF field around the wires that when you wind an antenna around it and connect that to the earth, you actually have 50 hertz power line there. And the way you wind is how efficient you can make it. And with one row, I can create a single milliamp on 220 volts, enough to I've built up to 10 milliamp or something, and I could burn 3 lamps of 30 milliamp each, and 15 of 25 LEDs who each use 5 milliamp.
So
it just burns them. And it only uses the actual voltage it uses.
Right. Have you thought about just keeping it DC? Much more efficient.
No, it's AC to begin with because of the 50 hertz. You put it through a diode bridge to make it DC, the diode current again. And that's how you have both, actually.
If that's how you start it and that's how it stays efficient, then work with it. I've just when I deal with people with solar panels and motors and stuff, I tell them
on your own power network.
Right.
What they provide in America, it's hertz, 110 volts.
No, I see what you're saying.
It comes 120 hertz pulse DC. It's kind of a pulse energy, like the wave of an AC.
I'll tell you. Back in the old telephone days, when you actually had a telephone, one of my friends used to charge a capacitor off of his telephone voltage because they had to give you a little bit of voltage across the wire. And he used that to run Christmas lights that he had around his room. So all night he had Christmas lights running off of the power off his telephone, just leeching 24 volts off the phone line. I tell you what you can do with a lot of endless amounts of little amounts of power. It's just
your whole environment is full of it. You just don't know how to tap it. That's the information what they keep from you.
Indeed.
And meanwhile, they say that you're triple, 10 times. I don't know. They oversell you the same product.
There's laws in my country that you can't put a spool of wire underneath a power line. Like I was saying, we still have power lines above ground. They call them highways. And if you take a steel cable and you make a 6-foot loop and put it underneath that power line and just run them out and just have those two things, boom, that's power right there. And you're just leeching it off the power line. You don't even have to physically connect to it.
EMF field, yeah.
Right, you're just getting power. So they deemed that illegal. But it doesn't mean it doesn't work, and it doesn't mean you can't do it. So it's just
the biggest excuse I get from people is I can't run my water cooker on it, or something what really needs amperage. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the power itself is useless. You can finally build it up that you can actually spill it in a single second, but you can also use hardware what just doesn't spill that. The micro,
Right.
you know, all the microelectronics. It's all low power systems.
Well, that's one of the things I was saying is
to use a low power system. Well, you can actually skip the transformer and directly put it on the circuit.
A decade or two ago, if I was to give you, I have a battery that looks like a lipstick, and you can use it to charge your cell phone. But a decade ago, that wouldn't do anything. No one had that wouldn't charge a cell phone a decade ago. You know, because cell phones took more than that. You had to plug them in because they took more power.
Yeah.
We have devices that take trickle amounts of power, that we understand what a trickle amount of power can do. And we didn't have toys that took trickle amounts of power up until recently. So this trickle amounts of power, which is abundant all around us, is now becoming more useful because now we can use it. Back in the old days, you couldn't do arc welding with it. You couldn't run a big motor with it. And there was no way you're going to turn on your vacuum tube TV with it.
No.
Those things took 6 minutes to warm up.
Yeah. Yeah, the old analog.
And if I remember correctly, the capacitor in the back of those things, they would hold a charge for 6 to 12 months, depending on how good they were.
Yeah. You might actually want those back again because those are very useful for actually collecting your power.
Yeah, they were very well engineered machines, toys. Now, granted, we were taking those electrons and throwing them at the cathode ray, tube, but if we just everything else inside of there was very well engineered. Nowadays, they're this is a PC board that looked like this. This is a whole remote, all on one little PC board. That's the whole thing. It's amazing how small and trickle amounts of power we got these days. Didn't come as hard as easy as I wanted to.
Power. And we buy batteries. It's thousands, millions, I don't know.
Yeah. Now, because this doesn't look like a flower pot, we don't call the flower pot battery a battery. Even though nowadays that we use batteries all the time, I could never see the Baghdad battery as a flower pot ever again, even though I've shown it to people. Oh, it's a flower pot. I feel like backhanding them.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the cognitive dissonance that I was talking about, where they don't want to see it. They've been trained in this is history, this is what it is. Even though it doesn't make sense, and even though you can document things that are outside of it, and you're out of place artifact.
Kind of what I say, that love is your fierce prisoner. Your own fear keeps you down from anything, doing anything,
just because
reaching
we're so
anything.
programmed, though, isn't it? So programmed. Got to get out of the program.
Yeah, it's just how do you call it? For me, fear is just a cage with bars of reasons, because every reason is a reason to not love. There is no reason to love because our nature is love.
Right.
And only who loves is on the cage of fear, and only who is free is happy. So yeah, it's kind of happiness you can't become. You can only be happy. It's a choice in that sense. Yeah, choice of loving or fearing. Either way.
Yes, but in that sense, we have been very programmed, and it's just like being in the program. It's like one of the films we've been watching, isn't it? That is our life. Yeah, we're watching on a film. There's one I quite like with Ewan McGregor, and he basically realizes he's a clone for somebody else's parts, and eventually I forget what it's called. It's not called Logan's Run, but anyway.
The Island.
Oh, that's it, The Island. But in reality, we've got the same thing. Well, maybe we're not parts for someone else, but they're doing the same thing like that film.
Yeah, the same programming of your illusion world.
In fact, the world we thought was real is all a lie.
Yep.
Is that the one where they're actually underground and the girl's name is like Jennifer or something like that?
Yeah, the desert thing.
Yeah.
Well,
When he walks out, he finds himself in the desert.
Yeah, I like that movie.
what is also funny, I have a friend that has an old calculator from the early 70s, and he has the same battery in it when he bought it, because if you turn that calculator around, it says everlasting battery. And he had the same battery in that calculator since 1970. So there are batteries that are everlasting, probably. And they put them in a Texas Instrument calculator back in the 70s. Because it still works on that same battery. Till a couple of months ago, I went to him. He lives in the Netherlands. And he still has that calculator that runs on the same battery. After
I have a calculator on the same battery.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, all right. That's the one with on the sunlight. But he had a battery in that calculator, and it's also set on the back of the calculator. Everlasting battery.
Oh, it keeps ringing.
You can also play that video of that.
Yeah, Artist is now series.
If Angel is back, you can actually see it.
They were really interesting, Angel, those videos. I've not seen them before. And it's a bit like, I always just thought that the free energy was going to be in the sky. But
the mystery surrounding ancient Egypt has continued to grow.
Serious? In the ground as well as the sky. That's what I've learned recently. It's not just the sky, the free energy. It's in the ground as well.
It's Tesla said it has to do with how far it is. So when you're going underground, there's also a difference between ground level pressure and a couple 100 feet under, which I believe is where the energy is coming between the subterranean section. But the energy they're tapping, what they're milking out of the system and providing as the end product, I believe, is the energy from the air. But they're utilizing both, and it's really that wherever there's a differential. You know, like anything, a battery, it's just the differential between one and the other pole.
Yeah, they knew it, so they could actually tap into it, build it all. Because of the whole knowledge they knew about it, from small units, I guess, up till the biggest one.
Yeah, thanks, Angel, for sharing those videos with us. They were very interesting.
Yeah, and we have someone in the chat who's into all that free energy.
Okay, let's video.
Yeah, go on then.
Okay.
Grip the world. For generations now, the mystery surrounding ancient Egypt has continued to grip the world. For generations now, our obsession with the ancient wonders that are present in the region has refused to diminish. We continue to search for the secrets to the answers we know very little about. That is fact, you know. We know very little about the ancient buildings. Most people don't know this. Most of us accept the idea that the knowledge they learned is fact without doing any sort of logical thinking on the matter themselves. The history we think we know is nothing short of a lie. When we consider the world is filled with structures that are thousands of years old, yet engineers all around the world are dumbstruck as to how this was actually achieved with primitive tools and primitive thinking. The answer is, of course, the fact that there was a lost global civilization that existed on this earth many thousands of years before the timeline of what we are told actually begins. We obviously never went from caveman to building pyramids overnight, yet this is what we are meant to believe. Crazy, right? Anyway, guys, we wanted to bring your attention to a possible second Sphinx in the Giza Plateau. Wait till you hear this. Okay, so 2 sphinxes at Giza. Where is the evidence? What if we were to tell you that an analysis of ancient history and in-depth studies of archaeological evidence actually does suggest that there should be 2 sphinxes here? This means there is one still buried in the sand and a possible candidate to the legendary Hall of Ancient Records could be represented here after all. Not only did the ancient Egyptians mention the second Sphinx, but so did the Greeks, Romans, and Muslims. So the fact is, we simply have not rediscovered it yet. Could the second Sphinx still be in a preserved state, unlike the reconstructed Great Sphinx, which is still standing? Imagine the kind of secrets it could still hold. When we think about the ancient history of Egypt and the sphinxes that have been found across the region, then you always find evidence of pairing of sphinxes. So the fact that the Sphinx at the Giza Plateau is alone can be considered as an anomaly. NASA's most up-to-date land mapping analysis has made it possible to analyze the density of the geological layers that make up the ground and the monuments of the Giza Plateau. And with this photographic evidence, we can actually see that in this area, there really does seem to be a structure that NASA has colored in yellow. The satellite image released by NASA just above the pyramid's plateau confirmed this discovery. Having demonstrated this suggestive possibility thanks to an exhaustive research work that has taken more than a decade, the only thing left is to obtain an excavation permit that will help demonstrate whether or not there is another Sphinx next to the Great Sphinx of Giza. Wouldn't that be something? What do you guys think? Comments below. Thanks for watching.
Oh, artists. 2 sphinxes.
Yeah. Well, it will be very interesting what Angel's take on this is.
Haha, Angel.
See it. I'd like to see him actually go dig in there. I have nothing against it. I think it may wind up they're looking for a hall of records that I believe would have been underwater, so I don't think it is really going to be a hall of records. Although, if it is a hall of records, it probably has a bunch of grooves and stuff on the wall because it's more than likely written the same way the messaging within the pyramid itself is written with math instead of with words. And I think all those icons and stuff that they have that they say are Egyptian Sanskrit and stuff, that's all Egyptian stuff. And I really don't believe that the pyramid is Egyptian. You know, I am standing out still on that. We like to blend them together quite often, but I do not think that they are one and the same.
No.
Kind of the times of
Well, I thought it was an interesting video that there is a possibility of another Sphinx.
No, I think that's quite cool. And the nice thing is we have these technologies at our hand.
Yeah.
So we're not just completely digging in the dark. There is some, substantial evidence that something is there, and it's nice to find out what. The other side of the coin is if they find something that they don't like, they'll turn it into the same thing as the site down south. They'll say, oh, no, landfill time.
Oh, yeah. They probably do that, indeed. Because if they dig up something that doesn't fit the history, they try to hide it in all kinds of way. Because if you find more buildings that don't fit in the actually history they are telling you on TV and on in the schools, they try to hide it from us. Yep.
Yes, definitely trying to hide stuff from us.
Yeah,
all the time.
because you went to that island of Catalonia, and there was nothing mentioned when you went there about that wall, I believe.
Oh.
That wall I showed in the beginning.
No.
When you went over there.
Winemaking place there.
Sorry?
I went to a winemaking place there. I went to the beach a lot.
But yeah, but that wall was not mentioned in the tour guide.
Not that I remember, but I might not have been interested in that then. I would now. I just wasn't there.
I've looked in some
artists. It'd have been, hey kids, do you want to go and look at a wall?
Oh yeah, that's also yeah. I looked at some tour guides actually from that island, and that wall is never mentioned. So
I have to throw this in. I was in Illinois.
Yeah.
There's a state in the United States. It's called Illinois.
Yeah.
And in there, they have what's called mounds. And I guess there's like 7 of them. And just like your mound that's like right around that corner from your house, it is a large structure, several hundred feet. It is squared. And I believe it points to the cardinal directions. So when I was in Illinois, the person I was with said, hey, we got some big piles of dirt. You want to go check them out? Like these mound things? She said, you want to go see the mounds? And I'm like, what's a mound? She said, they're big piles of dirt. I'm like, I don't care about looking at big piles of dirt. You know, out of sight, out of mind. She described them as big piles of dirt.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. If somebody said, hey, you want to go check out a wall? You know, if they said, hey, they said, hey, the same like the Great Wall of China, you know, then you're like, oh, well, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, indeed.
Yeah, as I said, where I live, nearly everybody will know Silbury Hill is, oh, that's that strange mound of earth by Avebury, isn't it? And it's not. It's in the Pyramid of the World. And most people won't know it's a Pyramid of the World. I just think that's, I just think that's amazing. You've got to go and find this information when it should just be the information.
It's because pyramids are in Egypt. They own that tourism thing. They're Egypt and South America. Every other pyramid, not a pyramid. Doesn't happen.
But most flat earthers know there are pyramids everywhere. It is coming out.
I would say most flat earthers do research, and most not flat earthers watch TV.
Yes, to the program. In the program.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed, Angel. Yeah.
Well,
in a way, I would think I would also say flat earthers learn why to think, and non-flat earthers only learn what to think.
Anyway, we're not in that program anymore, are we? We're in a different one.
We are in
program. It's free will.
Free will.
The free will of the programmer itself.
We have escaped the programming.
Yeah, we're just like that film. We got out.
We got out.
Yeah, it's funny. As a programmer, I learned to reprogram myself.
Well done, series.
Programming is just basic, simple principles.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, the really sad bit is you don't even realise that you've been programmed. I think that's the worst part. Is that you don't like when I'm trying to tell my daughter things, or they just don't realise it's all part of this program.
Yeah, it is. And what the trouble is, most of the time, the children are brought up in the program, so they think that the program is it, and there's nothing around the program, and they teach at school a certain kind of programming, and if you are try to get out of that program at a young age, the teachers will probably fail you or give you low grades and all that kind of thing. And if you they make the programming so nice that most people want to stay in the program because it feels safe. And that's why most of the people don't want to leave the programming, because it's safe. They know it all their life, and you have to be a little bit of a rebel and really a free thinker to actually get out of the program and go on a different road that is not late.
Of elements, of choices in what somebody makes, it if they actually want to get out of it, they have so truly to change their complete life idea, actually a complete lifestyle change, just to only get out of that particular thought pattern. You're so caught in all kinds of elements that you have to break down all the elements, and that's a big job for those who actually go deep in that.
Yeah.
Well, that's because they've made the story so complete. They've filled in lots of the gaps. They've had lots of times come up with lies here and there, and they've made it so complicated that it's like the truth is so 180 degrees.
Yeah.
It is not just.
I understand what you're saying, right? I had a planning application behind an old house of mine, and what it was is there were so many like impact orders. There was this out permission here, and everything should have sat in one file, but it didn't. So bits sat in that department, bits sat there. You would never have got it together unless you went hunting for it. And you know, like this is what they've done. The same thing. All the truth is there, but it's split up into so many different places. Unless you're like a scientist, like Ceres or artist or Angel, then you're never going to put it together.
They try to make it as hard as possible to actually put it together.
Yeah.
Yep.
What I did with Google,
because they don't give you any inklings of the way you have to, which direction you have to go. You have to find everything out for yourself. Every little small bit you have to reinvent, research, and it takes a lot of time to actually research. Like I presented now that wall for you.
Artists, because none of us are going to believe. If you don't try and research or do some of this yourself, you're never going to believe it anymore, because it has to be. Is it repeatable?
Yeah, in a sense, you have to at least tie yourself into a part of the tree of knowledge, in the sense that you can actually realize there is a tree of knowledge, of where you are part of, in that sense, in a sense of that you have a network of people who contain the rest of the tree.
Yeah, indeed.
The community between the network is actually sharing the views between the sciences, so you can actually figure out what the whole truth is, instead of separate, as if one is only true and the other not. I mean, the only thing we can do is actually learn up everything as knowledge and see what it actually means. Figure out what we can do with it, what we actually can do with it.
Yeah.
Well, artists is finding the wall around the world. Aren't you, artists?
Maybe. Well, that wall, if you really stretch your imagination of that wall goes all the way to Italy, all the way to Turkey, all the way to Iran. So,
oh my goodness, really?
It's that, but you don't. I don't have evidence for.
Oh my goodness, Angel, what does this mean? The wall goes around the world.
Well, maybe it goes around that lake.
Oh, sorry, it goes across. Sorry, whoops.
You have the Black Sea. You have that sea between Egypt and Italy, and it basically goes around that sea a bit. And only the evidence for actually that being the same wall is very hard to get, because even in the wall that was on that island of Kefalonia had a little bit of different kind of building structures. And in Italy, you have also a piece of that wall And you have a gate in it that's called the Lion Gate. And then it goes further to Turkey and it goes further to Iran. But it's very hard actually to get all the evidence of that being one wall. So,
Well, if you can show pieces of multiple walls, you know, if it makes one big loop, it kind of is self-evident.
well, if you on Google Earth measure it with a straight line, it's very close.
Oh well, okay, well that's pretty evident right there. I think it's amazing. I just, like I say, I just like to know of the construction. It could be for some reason that we'll never know. It could be if somebody's place marker, hey, this is my territory, that's your territory. Could have kept the elephants. Yeah. I don't know, but I'm just more. What is it? Let's put it all together and let's let all the puzzle pieces pan out. But to deny its existence or say it was made by people with bean dip and papaya leaves just doesn't make sense. It's just a lie. It's just a lie.
Well, I have now a picture of actually another part of that wall, but that is on the west side of Greece.
Wow.
So, and the direction. This is called the Lion's Gate. If you have that triangle stone in the middle, and actually on the other side, you can see two lions. They are very worn down, so you can almost can't see them anymore. But you can see this.
So annoying! Like you were just showing us about like the sphinxes. There probably is two there, isn't there? In all likelihood, there's got to be two. They keep us on one, and then we never work out what it is.
Now, even on the in front of the structure of that Sphinx that we know is a tablet that is written with hieroglyphs, and that even on the tablet you see two sphinxes. So that's also funny that they always present two sphinxes, or more than 2, 4, 6, 8, and almost never one. No, to my knowledge, never one. Well, and this is just a picture of a part of the wall that could be that one time it went to that island. It's a possibility.
Artist, you're remapping the world in a different way, aren't you now? You'll have to keep a map going with all the things you found.
I have them on Google Earth, all the things that I found. I found tens of strange monolithic structures all around the world, walls, but this wall on that island was so large, almost 5-6 miles. So that was very interesting that it was such a long wall. Most of them are just a half a mile or shorter, and most of the time, as you can see in this picture, in the middle, that wall has bigger stones, and on the side, on the left, on the right, in front of it, they already have smaller stones. Dus that basically tells you that they added it on a later stadium to that wall, because the bigger stones are almost all the time the first construction, and later they added other constructions to that wall with smaller stones, and with you can see also there's mortar between those smaller stones, and those bigger stones don't have mortar between them, because back in that time period when they built those big monolithic structures, they always built without any mortar between them.
But mortar is mud.
Modder is toch...
Also, artists.
Mother is mud.
See-
Not modder.
Yeah.
Siri's noticed that lady's got like a cookie on her head. That's a joke going, everybody, because
Yeah.
people in the chat room put cookies now because of the cookie moon.
Oh, Patricia is getting off. You can say bye to Patricia now.
Oh, Patricia, don't go before you say anything.
No, we want to say goodbye to you.
Patricia, come back. So what do you think of the wall and those videos that Angel...
My mic won't go off then.
What do you think?
Very interesting.
Yeah. And the fact that there might be a big wall going across us.
Well, I was thinking that when you were describing it, artists, I was thinking most of them are like boundary things, aren't they? But if you think about how big the countries were, then they would literally follow on, wouldn't they? You know, as there was going round.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something for me to look into now, artists. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed.
Anybody in the chat room, if they want to go onto Google Maps.
Very interesting.
Artists would love to hear from you.
Yeah, indeed.
Any strange objects you find around the world, come to us and we'll send it to artists.
Yeah.
Or
please.
and Angel as well.
Yeah. All pictures of ancient walls and ancient structures are all.
I'm just
always
wondering
very
as well.
welcome. Yeah.
Mm.
Go
Yeah.
on.
Just wondering if some of them have submerged as well, because
Yeah, for sure. Still figuring out where the location.
I've been doing the sunken.
I've seen a lot of structure,
Yeah, it's
really
like I
bigger
said,
road grids in the sea, not deep under sea, but deep enough to be kind of pre-flood time level.
Mhm.
There's a lot to actually explore there. It's just finding out how to actually get it visible enough to actually study. Figuring out what they actually were.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, and
there are some walls in Russia, in the mountains, but they are very hard to find on Google Earth, and because you don't have the coordinates of those walls, only the pictures. And I always try to actually find the coordinates and see if you can actually see from Google Earth. But also in Russia there are a lot of walls, but the location is very hard to find because they're basically in a forest. So from above you, most of the time you can't see them.
Mm.
That's the problem.
Would have been amazing to have seen what we were actually living in before the flood or these arkings that destroyed everything. It would have been great to have seen.
Well, you're talking about the flood now, and it's even a possibility they put up those walls to prevent the flood of their cities. That they had already the knowledge that there was going to be a big flood, and they built these walls to prevent the flood from going into their cities. You never know.
I've got somewhere quite interesting for you to look up, artists. It's called Siena in Italy. It's a walled city. And what it was is it used to be the capital of Tuscany. And then what it is you can't drive in there today. And then once a year they have this race, horses race round the cobbled tracks. But if you imagine, it can be quite dangerous. Every now and again a horse will die, but that's part of their tradition. And they have this race round the courtyard. And then what happened was that, like I said, it was the capital of Tuscany. And then obviously they were fighting like they did or whatever. And then they actually got Siena to surrender by placing many dead donkeys around the outside. Of course, they went off, didn't they? And the people couldn't get out to get food and the smell. And then basically Siena gave in. And then Florence became the capital of Tuscany. That's a true story. It's a bit longer than that, but that's what happened. So that's another interesting place you took up, Siena in Italy.
Yeah. All right. I will look for that place and try to find the older structures there.
Yeah. Even
Most of the
artists some more homework.
Oh, I've yeah. Thanks.
You don't mind though, do you?
No, I have enough time to research and everything because I want to.
Loves it.
I want to mention basically to find all the information of that wall altogether took me maybe 25 hours altogether. So it looks like it pops up those pictures, but I actually have to. I have to research days before I actually get all the information right about that structure, and to get all the good pictures, because sometimes you have a site and you have pictures of an actually site, and halfway they change to another location, and so you have to really look really careful at the monolithic structures, because often they say it's that location and it isn't, or halfway the pictures you can clearly see that it's in another location. So you have to check, recheck, research for a long time to get actually a site complete. But it's a fun thing to do. It's almost being on holiday yourself and researching what actually is in some location, what kind of monolithic structures there are. And every time I find more and more and more and more.
It's the same for Angel as well, isn't it? Like Angel has this board behind usually with all these pictures on. And and he's... How long have you been researching, Angel?
How long have you been playing with the pyramid?
Yeah.
Since about 2012.
Whoa! Did you hear that, artist?
And then only pyramids. Whoa.
Whoa! Oh, thank you, Angel.
And it's that's when I kind of started looking, and I just keep gathering more information. Really, the most part is getting videos and pictures, because again, for me to model it, I'm trying to model it to how I know the structure is, and that's what pictures and videos do. Because stories paint a completely different picture.
Yeah, indeed. You have actually to have the pictures tell the story much better than actually stories tell about an ancient structure. Pictures
so, Angel,
are the key.
What made you suddenly that's a long time researching. So what made you get into all this then? Because obviously it's before Flat Earth.
Oh yeah, I didn't hit the Flat Earth till January of this year, but what made me, it was Chris Dunn's video. However, Chris Dunn's theory didn't hold water, literally. And when I look more into it, I can start at how the whole evolution of what I did and how I got there, but it's just paying attention to the facts, what is there, and what could be and what would be, and how things would work, and just looking at it not as a tomb, just approach it as something other than a tomb and saying, what is it?
Yeah.
And when you look at it for everything else, just pieces started to fit together and told me I was on the right path. And as I learned more and more, I just be on any other path, because people will tell me something. I'm like, well, that's great. You can throw that in there if you want. But if you look at everything else, that piece goes away, because that's a idea or something out of a story. And when you look at everything else, that's why I like to say, pull your head out of the sand, put it in a classroom laboratory scenario, and look at what it would do. And once you see what it would do, the nothing else fits. That's my opinion, but that's why I want to build one. I know it would at least do fun stuff. It would make a really cool waterfall, even if I couldn't get it to spark.
So just asking, now that we know that you get energy out of the ground, do you think that's what the Pyrrhus were doing? Maybe they were taking it from the sky, but they were taking it from the ground.
Well, I believe the subterranean section was working off the differential between ground level in the grotto and the subterranean pit. The only two spots where the structure touches Earth. And they were playing with that differential. That's what separated the water. But the power they were tapping was actually coming from above, because that water was being, that energy was being used. It was separating, the energy from that differential was being used to separate the water. The energy, the static electricity on the surface of the structure, that is not being used. That's being collected and then tapped, but it's not being used unless there is more with the other structures. I mean, that's why I kind of want to look at the whole big thing, because there is more to water than I know. There are, I mean, I could go into many different things that water can and does do. You can go with, I'm sure we can find YouTube videos on how when you play certain music, it makes funny shapes, and you can make it turn in, you can make it look like a,
and it's got memory.
You can make it look like a four-sided thing. It's geometrical. It does all sorts of fun stuff in different patterns, different energies, just voltages, not always just sound. You can manipulate it with sound. You can manipulate it with electricity. You can manipulate it with pressure. And I think they all go together because it all plays with the surface tensions and pressures within both the water structure itself and with the surface tension of the water. And when we really, truly look at what the structure was doing, I think we'll be surprised, and it might be doing something that I can allude to, but I'm not sure because I haven't modeled it. But one thing is that it's pulling in air, ambient air, which is 98% nitrogen, and I believe probably at that time it was still. And which means when you've exhausted all the oxygen out of the air and you're left with nitrogen, I believe there's going to be ammonia also inherent in the system. And I know ammonia and water don't like to mix very well. They kind of spattle and spark, and they don't mix very well. So I'd really like to look at what that does. And when you mix them and they react, there's energy given off there as well. I mean, I don't know, help or hinder the system, but I do think it's relevant to it.
We're even breathing it in, aren't we?
Yeah.
Ammonia? Not really, because ammonia.
No, the free energy that's in the air, we're breathing it in.
Well, I kind of believe it passes through us.
Yeah.
That's where the whole earthing, grounding. If you haven't really looked at earthing or grounding, it's, if you garden, you do it by nature, unless you garden in an apartment building where you're gardening above ground. But nowadays we walk around on plastic shoes. We don't use leather shoes. We walk on cement. We live in buildings that are separated from the earth itself. So we are not on the same harmonic vibration as the earth. We are slightly off. Even the ground in our ground wires, at least here in the United States, our ground wires aren't even really ground. Okay. They're a simulated grid. Yeah, if you look at, we have a whole huge power grid. And we have like 3 power grids that cover the whole United States. And I'll tell you that ground in the mile-high city of Denver and ground here at a beach city are not the same state. So if you actually had the grid, which is a national grid, and they're tied to ground, one of the sides is going to be leaching power off of it because they're not ground. They're not identical. Ground isn't ground the same place all over. That's the thing. That's
These,
how part of this works. That there's a differential.
you have these particular potential
So-
differences on the Earth as well. So in a sense, yeah, you're actually tapping into.
Right. It's ground for your ambient area.
Yeah.
But it's not the ground here and the ground on the top of a mountain are two different grounds, because that ground is a wind blowing back and forth between the trees. So there's some static electricity up there on the top of the mountain all by itself.
Yeah.
More so than down at ground level. So there's the differential there. Just that's kind of what the video was, that there's more electrons floating around up there, and the differential between them is electricity. And when the differential gets to be enough that it snaps, that's a lightning bolt. And when it gets enough within the clouds and they snap, that's thunder. So
Yeah, indeed. You made that very clear. Thanks for that, Angel.
There's so
I
much.
also sent a video in the chat with those sounds and sand and all those shapes. So you can, maybe it's fun for the people in the chat to actually see how that works.
What, do you want series to play it?
Yeah,
Sure, go for it.
it's one of the better ones. So the people who don't know about those frequencies and the shaping of the sand actually can see how it works.
Yeah, I'm a fan of demonstrating something, because just saying it just sometimes sounds too good to be true. That when you see it, it makes it harder to forget.
Yeah, indeed.
Series just is adding a couple of links that you guys have given out for the videos. He's just putting them into the chat for everyone. The videos we played tonight are just going in the chat. So thank you, Artist and Angel, for them. And Series is going to play. He's just doing it.
Okay.
UV and color sand.
Yeah. Well, it basically gives you a picture so you can actually see what happens.
Yeah. But this is with UV color.
We're playing another one now.
Yeah.
Like to have seen a bit more with the red and the yellow.
Yeah. Very cool.
And great music as well. Just to add to it.
Yeah.
You got another one, Siri? Oh.
No, that was the video.
Did you like those then, Angel?
Well, there's a lot more.
Oh.
Oh.
Yes. In fact, I have one that shows levitation of water. You can have it suspended in the air. They used a set of speakers, 4 across and 4 high, and they can move the water around in the air, showing, if you want to call it levitation, but at least it shows how you can use sound energy to bounce water and suspend it in air. It's quite amazing what we can do. It's the bottom one that I sent you. The other two are
Yeah, the same as.
are different.
Yeah, that last one I already took a peek at it, and indeed, it's amazing.
28 minutes. It's a half-an-hour video. Levitation
You
bay.
can thumb through it. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but there are pieces of it that are quite amazing.
Oh, really? Oh, my goodness.
So it goes on. It's a lot more of this, but it basically it's showing that how sound can be used as an energy source to lift and carry things, and I don't disbelieve that with enough knowledge of what it's doing, we can't find the right sound to make things hover. You know, there's living proof that it could be done on a small scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Aha.
It's
John
just
Hutchinson.
great video, Angel. Thanks.
Yeah, he was really an inspiration for the whole frequency part of what frequencies actually could do, and not only the sound, but electromagnetic actually.
He
Yes,
goes into
whole
the electromagnetic because it's if you play around with the what they like to call the Planck's constants, which I believe is a solution set to a guy named Frank Zagarsnik's formula, that there are peaks and troughs, and when you get the right set of them, and things become what's a super state, and you can be constantly pushing up on that thing with the sound, and you just hover. I mean, I'm not going to call it anti-gravity. You just you create an energy bubble beneath you, and you hover, kind of like they showed in the diagram.
Anti-acceleration.
Yeah, everything's the opposite, though, isn't it?
Yeah. What they call gravity is, the way to explain it is actually it's not the object attracting some other object. It's just the other object actually attracted to the potential of where it should be, and it's kind of an acceleration towards that object. Instead of being pulled, it pushes itself towards it.
Now those bruises and stuff they were showing, that goes back to what I was saying last week, how when you play certain frequencies, you can actually get the water, just like that salt. It would like splash out at certain frequencies, and at other frequencies it stayed in a right spot. The same thing will happen with our cells. When you play certain frequencies, you will damage the cells, and hence you will get damage, along with other extra steps, but just on the minor scale, that's how you...
Wasn't that with that water car, that breaking of water, and then actually after that the next step of electrolyzing and then creating oxygen, and what was the other? Hydrogen?
Yeah, there were many different people have gone and found many different things, but Hutchinson was more working on levitation, manipulation, causing things to go out of phase so that certain things would meld together. You saw how the metal would just melt apart. I think that would kind of go into sonic welding, where at that one point it was just, at a state of disassociation. The bonds weren't quite sure how to connect. They were just all going, vibrating in a crazy state.
As if you're putting clay together.
Right. He did a bunch of work, and I don't have a playground to experiment with it, but now you look at some of those and you think of crop circles. And if you know that certain frequencies create a certain pattern in a certain medium, and then you duplicate that pattern in a crop circle, then you are transmitting a number or an information. And I still say that we're not...
The frequency set. What is
right.
actually...
Well, it could be a frequency setting, or you give a number. If I relay a number to you and that number means something, you have to have a constant in order for that number to mean something. But if I said like 42 to you, but that meant something to you, then it's communication. But the fact that you can relay an image, and that image backtracks to a frequency or to a number or to something, you're communicating, as opposed to just a random pattern in the corn. I don't think they're very random. I think they all have meaning. And I think that we're disillusioned from looking at them, just like that pile of dirt in your backyard. Oh, that mound. Oh, it's just a mound. Don't worry about it. Just a mound.
I just can't believe that place makes the pyramid of the world, and yet it's not in any, the locals don't know about it. Yeah, it's just in the
mound. Nothing to see here, just a mound.
No.
But there's more there, because there's this thing called the Long Barrows, which is supposed to be another burial chamber. Then you've got this thing at Windmill Hill, which looks really weird. I've tried to show these pictures for its weird arkings in the ground. And then you've got Avebury itself, the stone circle, and there's just more there, and it's just like, wow. Love to have seen it in its entirety, as well as the pyramid. And most people don't know all this. It's just really sad. Oh, loads of crop circles turn up there as well. Anyway, Angel, do you want to explain a bit more what's happening on the video, or do we just top the video now?
Oh, here they're just going into stuff that really, unless you follow it, doesn't make it. I just was really into showing the hovering salt and how sound.
Yeah, that's. Should we stop it then, series?
There's also one, I could probably find it pretty quickly, where they just have a stream of water coming out of a hose, and they'll play certain frequencies, and the water will make patterns. Have you seen that one?
I think we've had it on Sun and Moon, but if you can find it, it's just good. Great to us.
That hovering triangle, what switches? Triple drop triangle. What
he's gonna find it?
The other triangle.
I got one.
It's kind of between the flower of life grid. First that grid, then that grid. as an opposing frequency of vibration. Yeah.
What series?
How the drop is in the air, making a triangle of 3 drops, and then collapses into the opposing triangle, and then collapses back into the opposing, and that's the frequency between the triangle. Is you have first the one flower of life grid and then the other flower of life grid. The difference is in which way you actually have the overlaying circle. In one direction you have an overlaying circle over the half of the circle, and the other one is a little bit into the circle. And that's the difference between which direction you go. What builds up the tree of life in the sense of 3 joint partially joint circles, what create the tree of life patterns.
I hope everybody's got that then.
Yeah, and then you can turn the circle a quarter, and then you have the horizontal version of that, and it's like it's switching between the 2 polarities all the time. One triangle is this way and the other one is that way. It's the opposing triangle flips over in the grid. Yeah, it's sorry.
That's okay, series. You never know, they might have got it.
Yeah, in a way, you need to visualize this stuff in drawings so people actually can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, live research isn't always, well, we've been playing videos. Angel, did you have another one for us?
Yeah, I shot one over. It's relatively short and nice to look at.
What, the last one?
Yep.
Go on then, series. Go for it, series. Nice black cat there at the beginning. Whoa.
This is also based on the frequency of how you record a video, the frame rate.
Oh, you mean a bit like the propeller?
Yeah, you're catching the pattern on the frequency you actually shoot a video. Yeah, I wonder how you in real life how you actually would see it. Flash effect.
See, all these are related because they all have to do with sound and vibrational energy, and just it's amazing what even small amounts of energy can do as far as patterns and frequencies. And I think I'm more into the patterns because patterns are a visual representation of the sound. consistent.
Yeah, that's amazing. Right, okay. Yeah. What do you think then, series? Amazing.
Yeah, everything is connected to frequencies, and it's the same thing what Tesla said. 369 frequencies. I figure with this particular idea about the EMF tapping of your network through an antenna, what is winded around your load wire, on where the potential of the EMF field actually you can measure. That's pure frequencies. It's based on that AC pulse what is there all the time. And the only thing what switches is the minus and the plus between the ground and the antenna. That's why you have a 50 hertz AC or a 100 hertz DC pulse. And it's out of their network. They cause actually the frequency, and purely through the frequency itself, you can actually tap into the electromagnetic field around the wire. And I've seen up to, what is it, over almost 300 volt or something at some point. Somewhere in my testing, but eventually I ended up with just 220 volts. But every antenna I made was just a milliamp extra. So eventually I ended up with around 10 antennas building up to 10 milliamp potential. And out of that burned 3 power LED halogen lamps on 220 AC. And next to that, via the diode bridge, making it direct current, burn 25 LEDs and load 2 12-volt batteries. And yeah, that was the maximum I tried on it. And yeah, you could see the lamps were weaker, but yeah, if I just put one on it, it was as bright as my my room light. And that just from 10 milliamp. So yeah, in a way, I think it's different energy because it's actually a pulsating energy. And it seems LEDs are actually working on this particular principle of a pulse. Of working very good on a pulse energy. And yeah, it's kind of, we only need to adjust the type of conversion of energy to actually have stuff running, because much of the time your hardware isn't using that much energy. It's just plugged into the 220 network, and between there a transformer to what it actually uses. And yeah, the heaters, etc. Those are the energy consuming part in what you actually still need from your network. But all the other hardware you never use, light, you won't need it. You have all the light for free, etc. It's just kind of how you build it up. And so far I figured I've run it through the earth wire of the network, and around 40 milliamp the earth switch is actually turning on my network because I'm using too much power. And that's the only thing what I saw so far. And I need to make my own earth wire actually from outside, and then try the same principle again. And I figured also with an even thinner antenna wire, I can probably get 10 times more of it or something. Only 10 milliamp out of one antenna wire. Probably, yeah, it's about a kilometer of wire on 0.1. 0.2 I can wind with my hand still, but the 0.1 is so fragile, it's impossible to create a bigger antenna out of it without destroying the wire. So I actually need a kind of winding machine to build that particular antenna wire. But yeah, the principle is, the more ohmage your antenna wire has, the more it acts like an antenna, and On the other side, you need the load wire from your network to actually have this particular 50 hertz pulse. With the 220, what is your actual maximum voltage out of your antenna wire? And that's how far I am till now. I need way more investment to actually get it way better experimented. To be sure of how it all works and what the directions there are, of how you actually make it more efficient, etc. But so far I figured frequency is the answer. Frequency is the actual energy. It's like everything vibrates. I mean, even light, everything is a vibration in that sense. Even the matter, it's just way denser energy. But everything itself, I see the atom, something goes there around as a potential field, but it's just a vibration. In that sense, the whole universe is an electromagnetic universe built out of light.
So as well, Angel, then, so the point of those videos were that you think that's what the pyramids were doing?
No, as far as the sound and vibrations, I just think it's something I don't think in any way, well, I can't say in any way. I do feel that when the whole thing comes together, that the Grand Gallery is acting like a big tuning fork, and that the King's Chamber is where it resonates. And I think they're using either sonic welding or sonic unwelding. Because it was something that Stan said in a couple of his videos, where if you can keep the water from rejoining back together, that's where you get even more energy out of it. So if you could like be burning the water, but not letting it form water, so you burn it, but it doesn't reform back to a water molecule, he's insinuating that you can get even more energy out of it. So maybe if by not letting the water form, you're actually letting the ammonia form. I mean, I don't know. This is, again, why I'd like to model it. I don't know. Chris might know. I don't know. You know, I don't have a lab to play with and set up the right environment, because I do believe it's in a negative pressure state environment, and there's, you know, energy and a flame and hydrogen and air, and what comes out of it is what nature will make come out of it. And I think they manipulated it to allow something to happen, but exactly what it is why I want to model it. I don't want to squeeze things into it. I'd love there to be a magic golden pyramid, and I'd love there to be an Ark of Covenant, and I'd love there to be, you know, golden statues and stuff. But I really just want the machine to be what the machine is, and to see what it does, and to learn from it. I can speculate certain things, but I'm speculating it based on guesses, not on facts. And, you know, I know there's nitrogen, and either it squeezes it out or it utilizes it. I know
you need to have the sciences in that sense that you can actually realize what.
I know enough about science to have some facts. I don't know enough to know exactly what it's doing. And that's where CAD or somebody who's like, oh yeah, we had a furnace that was burning with that stuff a couple of years ago, and it did this and this and that, and, you know.
Practical info. Actually, things what connect to the functions of. It's kind of what Chris thought. Hey, water pump. But apparently the stone.
I like those videos because it shows what we can do with our surroundings. And when somebody says, hey, you can't, you know, with enough sound, I can make this thing hover right here. Although the sound would probably be ear piercing. What they didn't show you on those videos is what the sound itself sounds like. They're ear piercing sounds.
Yeah.
But they exist, which could be the reason why, you know, flying saucers have an ear piercing sound.
Or whatever they are.
Yeah, it's kind of hovering on sound.
Right.
Well, they're basically unidentified flying objects. You don't know whether they are, if they are from another place or they are actually military.
Now, here's another thing. There's no reason why you can't incorporate multiple things together. There's no reason why you can't have a dirigible filled with helium or hydrogen and be using sound as your propulsion and some of the lifting. I mean, there's no reason why you can't be using multiple things. Or same way we use an engine today, they might have been, I don't know exactly how our B-2 bomber works, but they ionize the front edge and they electrify or deionize or put electrons on the back edge. But I think some things that can occur is the same way we can vacuum bombs nowadays. They suck all the oxygen out of the air. I think what they're doing is they're burning it together with hydrogen and making water. And since there's much less room, it just sucks all the oxygen out of the air, basically makes everybody go, and then you fall over. And they might be able to, with the right frequencies and the right energies, be able to make the leading edge of a plane cause the oxygen within the air to meld with hydrogen and become water to take up less space to allow the plane to go through. And on the back end, be just burning the water or separating it back apart to give compression or an exhaust power from the back, and just have that be a method of transportation, as opposed to the way we do it now, where we force it through with propellers or we force it through with a jet. I mean, there are other things out there that we haven't really toyed with because they've been out of our focus. They've been out of our, I use the analogy that if you come into my house and you don't know there are cookies in the cabinet, you're never going to ask me for a cookie. If you come into my house and you know there are cookies in the cabinet, you're going to say, hey, can I have a cookie? If you don't know it's there, you're never going to ask for it. If you don't know it's there, you're never going to utilize it. If you didn't know you can make water hover around, if you didn't know you could get oxygen and hydrogen out of water, you're never going to play with it. And although now we call water H2O, it still doesn't sink into people. I talk to people and I say, why do you think we call it H2O? And they're like, I don't know.
They never learn this stuff. Yeah, high education, blah, 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 but then completely under the labels.
Some things are staring you in the face and you don't even realize it.
Oh yeah, that's all the part of waking up. It's sometimes right in your face, and you have to be open-minded to actually see it.
But that was the first thing that really was my awakening moment. Is I had seen for several years since 9/11, I had seen here in the States, they showed a really repetitive video where they showed Tower 1 fall, they showed Tower 2 fall, actually reverse. They showed South Tower fall and the North Tower fall. And then they put, it's a white building, I forget the name of it, I think it was the Sands in Vegas. And they put Building 7 and they show those two go together right next to each other.
Oh.
And the way that they always say it on the news is, oh, well, see, those look nothing like, we can obviously tell the controlled demolition, and they show the other two buildings. But what they never, ever, ever said on the news was that building right next to the white building was Building 7. They showed the exact same video clip and said, this is what the conspiracy theorists show. It's very obvious to see that these two towers did not fall like these two towers did. But they don't say this one fell on September 11th as well. No. Because as soon as I found out that Building 7 fell just like the other building on September 11th, that's when I was like, I've seen that picture at that time 30, 40 times. I said, I've seen that. No one ever said, hello, that fell on September 11th. Not that those two buildings are controlled demolition and these two that are exploding are planes hitting them. Yeah. you know, and that was where I saw that, and I was actually sick to my stomach for a little while, and I was like,
crazy to think
I
it all
had
happened
seen
in one day, but nobody really knows that buildings. Well, in fact, it isn't even just building 7 because there were 7 buildings and the whole lot went that day.
it was gutted, but 7 is like evident. You can look at pictures of 6 after the fact, and you can see that it's gutted. You can see that, but you have to look at it just like we also have our Oklahoma City bombing, the Murray building, where when you look at it, you can see that it's gutted. When you know that there are pieces of that building on top of the building across the street, when hypothetically the explosion came from a van sitting in front of it, there's no way it would have had the explosive power to throw it across the street. These little tiny facts they don't tell you about on the news. And again, until people look into it, they just believe what they see. I believed what I saw. I believed what I was told for a long time until I realized that building that I had seen 20, 30 times on the news fall, the news never said that building fell on September 11th also. No. They just compared those 2 buildings falling to the 2 towers exploding. And they said, oh, these are obviously 2 different things. Those conspiracy theorists, whack nut jobs, they're whack nut jobs.
Well, it's very, very funny you point that out because in Germany here, they never showed the collapse of Tower 7. Mm-hmm. They never showed it. They only showed the South and North Tower of the World Trade Center falling. And they never showed Tower 7. Later on, I found that information on the internet, and then I thought, well, this is strange. Why don't they show it? They never showed it.
It's a white elephant that has no explanation. That's why they don't show it.
And then I started researching Tower 7, and I thought it was strange that I never heard about it. And then all the other conspiracy videos popped up, of course, and then I started researching, and that's out of sight,
out of mind. If you don't talk about it,
I know what Angel means about building 7, but then the BBC clip turned up to say that they reported it on the day as falling down before it even happened. So how would they do that?
Well, they even showed it to
artists. It was an act of terrorism. How would the BBC know? How could they put that out?
Who was the owner again?
They got the Reuters. They got the Reuters report. It came out through the telex back when they did it.
The owner of the actually had an interview saying that they had to pull it. The term for
there's so much tremendous loss of life that we opted to pull the building, and we made that decision, and we told the fire department that we're going to pull.
All along, whatever they were doing to it, the building was leaving through the smoke that was going through the side of the building. It was dustifying in front of our eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, they interviewed an engineer that also was a specialist in exploding buildings in the Netherlands, and they showed him the collapse of Tower 7, and he didn't know what that video was about, and they basically asked him, "Oh, you see this tower collapse? Yeah. Well, what do you think of it?" Well, he straight away, without thinking 1 second, said, "That's a controlled demolition, 100%. Then they told him it was a tower in New York, all right? And then they told him it was actually Tower 7 that fell a couple of hours after the World Trade Center collapsed. And he couldn't believe his eyes. He said, really? He didn't even believe it at that first moment. And he later on still said, that the collapse of Tower 7 is 100% demolition. And he stated that on the news a couple of months later. And they wanted to do a bigger interview with that person later that year, or only a year later. But he actually was found dead in his car. Very convenient for them. But he basically also told it was a controlled demolition 100%, and they didn't show him beforehand what it was about. And just 1 second, he immediately said, well, that's a controlled demolition.
If you look at that what occurred, benign, and don't know what day it occurred, don't know the name of the building or anything, it's a controlled demolition.
Yeah,
as soon as
100%.
you figure out it happened on September 11th,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, a plane must have hit it.
Never did. Yeah.
I know that, but
Yeah. Well,
Not just that building was the Bears building, and also just masses of things went that day, like court cases, all sorts of things. Just that was it that day, all lost.
yeah.
They must have put everything they wanted to lose in that building, so it was destroyed.
Well, he even stated that, man, that that when the tower 7 was supposedly damaged by the fall of the World Trade Center, and he actually gave him the time of that the tower was that the World Trade Center collapsed, and they gave him the time of that when that happened. And then they showed Tower 7, the actually time of the collapse of Tower 7. And he stated, well, if you have enough people in that time period, you could easily put in that building dynamite and let the building and make a controlled demolition of it. So
they had like 3 months.
They had enough time to actually, when Tower 7 supposedly was damaged, till the time that it collapsed. Between the time between that was enough time to actually get explosive in there and make a controlled demolition. It can be done.
Say, if you had a crew of 2 or 3 dozen people, and they were all experts, all with plasma torches and cutting equipment that they could get into the beams where they had to get into, with a lot of electricity at their hands to use the plasma torches. And they were all the experts from a company like Controlled Demolition or something like that, done.
Yeah.
But in the 3-4 hours you're talking about. But I think they used the 3 or 4 weeks prior to it, and actually
possibly
months, because there was a multiple month renovation on the at least in the 2 towers. They were working on the elevator shafts. Building 7, since it was like FEMA and FBI and stuff like that, it wasn't open to the general public. They could have been doing anything for as long as they wanted. And I do believe that that structure is one of the structures that contained like a level 5 biohazard room, where it's designed to incinerate in the event of a problem, because they'd rather incinerate a couple of people than let a biohazard escape. And since that was a FEMA section and an FBI section, they would have had one of those biohazard rooms. So knowing that, there was already incendiaries in the building, although it was supposed to only take out a bubble, not the whole building. But they do design some of these buildings with the intention of being blown up, and gotta protect the secrets, save country, God and country, yay.
But I just want to point out that even in that time period, it could be done. But they probably already had set the explosives weeks before.
Yeah, but who's walking around with enough of that stuff in their truck, ready to go, with miles of cable and a team, so that they can say, okay, we're going to blow this building in 4 hours. Go!
Yeah.
While it could be done, that is the most unrealistic of that stuff.
The chances of that being true is very low indeed. But it's the fact is, and that is 100% that it was a controlled demolition. That's for sure.
I agree. Circaveta, or however you say it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying, right? That's what the guy said, the engineer. He said circaveta, or whatever it is that means absolutely.
Yeah, zeker weten, yeah.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. He was 100% sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wasn't, I,
You
did,
guys
I,
can build
didn't know,
in with it?
I
Absolutely.
didn't know we'd be doing some 9/11 today, but I just spent years on that, and just I think it changed from Thermalite to this to that, and then there's Dr. Judy Woods, and I think I know another way now that it happened. It's just.
Well, it wasn't
I've
airplane.
7 years I've run 911.nl since 2002, I think. And at some point, I got so many crazy people in my life. I'm doing something else.
Well, all I do know is that the 9/11 Commission theory is very fable. It's about as fable as the Warren Commission theory.
It's 9/11 isn't the first. I mean, if you realize that that is the first one you actually recognize, and you go in back in for every war, etc., you will see that none of the wars has been started with any of these kinds of false flag events before to initiate any war or whatever is in the world. All based on the same principle, and they do it over and over again.
I was already in the mid 90s. I was already open to the JFK thing because I had watched videos and documentaries on the. Basically, as soon as the internet came out and I was able to actually get video and look at pictures, is when I actually looked into JFK, because that had always interested me, and the whole magic bullet thing and blah blah blah. And luckily, we were able to get access to pictures and videos and people scrutinizing it and stuff like that. And that really was the first thing that at least opened my eyes to know that we're being lied to. And then when 9/11 happened, like I said, I believed the plane bit for a while because I never knew about Building 7. Building 7 didn't even know about it.
No.
And as soon as I learned of Building 7, that's like when you see Santa Claus come out of the bedroom, or when you see your Mickey Mouse take off the hat, or when you get the idea.
Yeah.
And you're like, that kind of burst my 9/11 bubble.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it was very funny when on Seinfeld they did they marked that shooting of John F. Kennedy. Did you actually saw that one in Seinfeld, that series with Kramer and George? And then there was a section of that George was spit on by an actual baseball player, and they made the spit go the same direction and the same angle as the bullet went when John F. Kennedy was shot. So they put it in their series to make fun of the whole story about John F. Kennedy, and that it was they basically told with in another way that the whole JFK assassination was staged, and it couldn't happen with that bullet. And in the Seinfeld series, they actually did an episode about that, but they thought that the baseball player was spitting George in the head, and it actually couldn't happen because it was they made the same setup as the JFK assassination to make a joke of that and basically tell everybody that the JFK assassination was fake. So sometimes they even tell it in a series to show everybody that what is fake. So I thought it was very funny. They actually put it in an episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah, you also get to see in real court cases where especially when you watch them, that what the jury is told isn't it's only what the prosecutor wants the jury to be told, and sometimes even the defendants aren't allowed to say things. At least here in the States, the judge will say, "Oh, you can't mention that. Can't talk about that. You can't mention that. Can't talk about that." It's like, well, they're really relevant. I wouldn't have walked up to the guy and punched him in the face if he hadn't just keyed my car. Oh, can't talk about that. You punched him in the face. That's all we're here for. You punch him in the face, And it's like everything is, it's only what the court knows, and they don't let you tell the whole story.
Work though, isn't it? None of it works.
Yeah, it's built.
It's all railroaded. It's a game.
Can I just explain one little bit? It's not the same thing quite, but I was one of these people stuck in that stupid PPI thing, except mine.
You froze up if you're still talking, or I did.
Yeah, my sound was gone. It's gone all at the moment.
I lost her at the PPI thing.
Yeah, me too. And now
We're running the show.
her thing is frozen now at the moment.
Well, while I have y'all here, welcome today, and
now it's the Angel Show. All come together at the Angel Show. Angel Show. Don't let Karen hear it. I think his computer froze or something, or he got an. Maybe he wanted to play a video and it blocked. Sometimes it happens.
Huh. Well, hopefully she can rejoin. I mean, there. Oh, the icon changed. Oh, okay. There she goes. Hi. There she comes.
Yep.
Okay.
We're back. Series got thrown out at that point.
Yeah.
We were talking about something, weren't we? And we got thrown out.
Yeah, you were. We filled in for a couple of seconds. We filled in for a couple of seconds.
You said
I found out what
the PPI thing.
I'm pretty fast back. Sorry.
Sorry, Angel. Angel?
I said you were talking about the PPI thing, and that's where you cut out. You said I was getting into the PPI.
Oh, really? That far back? I was just saying that I got into it. I'm not one of those people. It's not a PPI thing, but they've lumped me in there. It's wrong charges. That's what it is. But anyway, I didn't really want to talk about that. It was the fact that the banks go, I can't help you. Then they say the only thing you can do is go to the ombudsman, and then the ombudsman make you wait 4 years and help you. So all the system tells you to do all this, and when you get there, no one can help you because now there's too long a time. But the only people that made you wait were the banks, and yet, sorry, the ombudsman. Yet they can't help you. And then if they were impartial, then they take the 4 years they took to look at your case into consideration because it wasn't your fault, and they don't. So it's just all a game, and nothing works. If you're in housing or you go to the council, but nothing works. I'm just so surprised anything works. That's what I think anyway.
It's bureaucracy. Have you seen the movie? I think it's Tuttle. No, the movie is God. What's the name of the movie? The guy's name is Tuttle. Man, I'll remember the movie in about 10 minutes.
Just when you want to remember it, you can't.
What's that?
No, that's nothing. That's just a video of I put in a group chat. I also put it in the Hangout, a link to that Magic Speed video of Seinfeld, but you can't play that because you get a copyright strike. Just for you to watch it on a later time. It's very funny there because they are marking JFK assassination.
Oh yeah, copyright maybe in the live stream.
Yeah, you can't play that because you get a copyright strike for sure.
Lost Angel now while he tries to remember the name.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
And just in case everybody can see, I'm still with series in Holland.
Hey.
We watched some films last night. I've actually got away from flat Earth for a few hours.
Sometimes you have to get away from flat Earth and do something else to.
I made him watch The Scarlet Letter.
Oh, it's a nice movie.
You like it?
Yeah, it was a nice movie.
Did you understand it? Like,
Yeah, duh.
yeah, okay, cool. And then, what else did I make him watch? We watched a funny one. Friday.
What was it?
Friday.
Oh, the movie Friday.
Yeah, everybody knows movie Friday. And then.
Oh, is that a hip hop movie, Friday, with Ice Cube and so?
Yeah, that one.
Ice Cube, yeah.
This was something funny.
That's a funny movie indeed.
Yeah. And then, what else did they make you watch? Except over here in Holland, there's copyright for something, so you can't I wanted to put in this film, I can't watch that because you have to pay for it here. I don't know if that's the same. I can't remember now. I don't watch.
I need another tool as well.
Like, does the UK have it like that? Over here, they have to pay for the movies on YouTube. So someone downloads it.
Some of the movies you have to pay indeed for the movies on YouTube, but you can get around it, but you have to search very hard actually to find other movies.
I don't remember that being like that in England, but I don't know. I don't really watch any films on YouTube, so I wouldn't know.
A lot of movies, indeed, you have to pay not a great amount. Most of the time, only €5 for a movie to see on YouTube, indeed. But you can get around. Sometimes you can find those movies for free on YouTube, but you have to search for them a bit longer. And also on Dailymotion, that's another. On Dailymotion, they also have a lot of videos just like on YouTube, and most of the time on Dailymotion you can watch them for free.
So funny how intellectual property is actually working. It's so funny that they actually can copyright the truth.
Yeah.
So how the hell can out of money get the truth?
Are you allowed to show trailers without copyright infringement?
No.
Okay.
Any part of a movie or even sound of a movie, doesn't matter what part. I had even a small part of a movie in one of my videos, and I get and I also put in the comments section that it was for educational use, and they still got a copyright strike. And it was only only a minute.
Well, the movie is Brazil.
Oh yeah, I know that one. That's with Sean Connery, or not?
On YouTube, they share also movie.
That one is with Sean Connery. Brazil is indeed
1.5 of the speed, and then a blur image on top of it, so you can actually see the story. But
yeah, well, you know what? Also, is a great movie. What is one of my top movies is it's called The Holy Mountain. It's from 1973, I think. I can quickly search for a link and then I put it in the chat for you. It's one of. I think it's a great movie. It basically tells how greedy bankers are, what religion does to the world, in some bad cases, and all that type of things. And all it has about 4 layers. And it also has a layer with subliminal messages in it. So you have to watch that movie a couple of times to really understand all the layers. It's called The Holy Mountain. I will search a trailer for you. Put it in. That's
another bit that if I hadn't already been exposed to the internet and I didn't know about MK Ultra and MK Naomi and the Tuskegee experiment, and not Jekyll Island, that's where the Federal Reserve came from. We have Plum Island in New York, which is where we made Lyme's disease, which spread by the rats and the fleas and stuff and the birds getting off the island onto Lyme in New York, which is oh, those limeys out there, they got that disease. You know, anyway, if I had all the cover stories and lies, then, and I had already been exposed to what they call desert storm disease. Hey, just how we had Lyme's disease from all those people in Lyme, New York, when our bacterial experiment got off of Plum Island, but we couldn't tell them it was us that did it to them. And those poor Tuskegee guys that we gave syphilis for 40 years just to see how bad their crotch would rot. And then, you know, all the other things that when people kept coming back from Desert Storm and they had Desert Storm disease, which is a vaccine over stimulation and depleted uranium exposure. And they say, oh, that's just depleted uranium. There's nothing in there, just lots of bad stuff. But they were lying to our people that, you know, it's a lot, when you see how blatantly we're lied to, it makes it a lot easier to know when somebody tells you something not to believe them. And that's just, I was ready to hear something different. And really the truth, whatever story you want me to talk about, JFK, 9/11, a bunch of them.
This instead of the familiar.
Right. It's just, I want to look at the pictures for myself. I want to form my own mind. I want to look at, you know, what you say, but take it with a lot of grains of salt.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
yeah, and see it for yourself as much as possible, as best as possible.
It's also funny when Jesse Ventura, when he had that program Conspiracy Theory, he also replicated the scene of the JFK shooting, and he was he was a Navy SEAL, and he still trains with guns and shooting. So he tried to make that shot because.
Well, they also had
actually, and he couldn't make that shot. He couldn't even hit a car from that distance.
But they have you pigeonholed and worried about 3 shots when they have documentation of more, but it wasn't exposed to the Warren Commission because, well, those ones didn't matter. But there were 2 shots where the limo came around, and there was 1 shot that for sure hit some guy that was under the underpass. These were shots that were done, and supposedly no police officers let anything off. So, you know, these were shots that had to be accounted for. There's also the whole manipulation of the body. They just I don't know what radio shows you guys listen to, but these Hagman and Hagman guys who are really into kind of digging into the pedophilia stuff that's going around within our church.
Don't get me started.
But they also they interviewed one of the guys that were one of the security guys that carried or were responsible for getting the body off of the 737 or whatever it was, 757 at the time, whatever, to the hospital in DC or around DC, and Jackie Kennedy was in the car behind them, so they were part of that entourage. And the story they told about what occurred, and it's just hearing it and then knowing about how the body was hypothetically removed and manipulated, and it may not even have been the same body. And the guy that Officer Tibbetts that got shot, what they don't really want to talk about is that he did stand-up comedy because he was a JFK impersonator and looked just like him, a spitting image for him. They don't mention that bit, but he mysteriously wound up getting shot, and then nothing to hear about him anymore. When he could have been the perfect body double to make sure that that's the body that people see with the head that they wanted people to see, as opposed to the true head wounds, which would have shown multiple inputs from multiple locations with multiple guns. Because it was kind of like not Mark Anthony. Who was the one who got stabbed by 7 people? All honorable men. Caesar got stabbed by 7 honorable men. JFK was taken out by all honorable men. You know, I think we can go into it, but everyone had their hands in it for a reason. They all agreed, like, well, he messed us up on that Bay of Pigs. Oh, he did this on the here. Oh, okay. He didn't let us do that. He shut down our cyclotron. He was going to blow the story on how, like, Dr. Mary Sherman was working with the cancer that they were trying to engineer to give Castro, and how that cancer got mixed in with the vaccines, and how we actually engineered cancer to be a weaponized cancer, as well as making Lyme's disease, as well as half a dozen other things that we've engineered, and then oops, let it go. They didn't want to let all that out of the bag. The CIA has what they call, it was the FBI. Yeah, it was the FBI has their family jewels. When you look at those, some of those are pretty nasty things, and these are what my government did. I mean, luckily you're not a part of my government in this case, but and this is just, I mean, in England you can go into that whole 7/7 thing, which is the same as our 9/11. It was the same thing. It was a pro intel or whatever it was operation. It was a drill simulated live. I don't think that, just like how we had staged people that were hurt there, you guys had staged people that were hurt there. I mean, it's happening all over. They have learned that they can put something on TV and you'll swallow it. And as long as they repeat it after every commercial break, you'll swallow it. And most people are not smart enough to go and look at things on their own, not smart enough to look at the facts, not smart enough to figure out, hey, somebody who's bleeding doesn't have a nice clean white shirt. That's a staged blood splat. That's, a doctored image. That's there's just, it's amazing. And it's happening all over. It sucks, but it's happening all over. We just need to be smarter. Smarter than the average duck.
Yeah. In a way, it doesn't matter actually how smart anyone is. The wise will find each other anyway. It's kind of beyond that your mind level, because it's no mind. It's recognizing who you actually are, and the thing like truth you already have. The only thing why you could actually recognize it is because you already know. Otherwise, you wouldn't recognize it as a truth. So in a sense, the truth you already know. The only thing what happens is that you actually recognize it.
Well, that, and if you understand how they got the people to do, was it during the MK Ultra experiments and stuff, and the LSD stuff that my wonderful CIA was doing, how they lured the people in, knowing the whole story of it's just the deception and manipulation that they set up in the backstories, and how they, I don't know, there's just so many different things. When you know all the stories of how they set up, like that one mobster they got on tax evasion, Capone, and stuff like that, and you follow the backstory, and I don't know if you guys know about a cop named Serpico. They made a whole movie about him.
I've seen the movie.
Right. I've listened to interviews with the guy. And I've seen the movie, but it's when things like that occur, it's just it's hard to sit there and say that. So it's incorporated corruption. Yep. They've made it that way because the people at the top are corrupt.
Yep.
And it kind of rots from the head down. And good guys, like the movie Serpico book, you can watch, excerpts of it all over the place. The good guy is the odd fish. He's the one saying, hey, we can't be doing this. This is against the law. Oh, everyone does it. Just shut up and go along with it. When it's been railroaded, trained, schooled into you to do it a certain way, it's the way it is. It all, I can go back to, I think, that the time, one of the major steps were in the 1500s when everything started.
An authority inside of you, giving them the blame that they are the authority, so they are to blame. Never realizing you're the one actually giving them the rights.
Well, that's true too.
So, but that you yourself are actually responsible for a particular part.
They're supposed to be my security. I hire a maid, I tell her to do whatever I tell her to do. You know, hey, don't tell me you don't want me leaving my cups on the counter. You know, you're my mate. I've hired you. You know, you're my security guard. Don't tell me that I can't have goldfish in my backyard. You're my security guard. You're here to protect my security. You're not here to dictate policies to me. They're your policies. They're not my policies. But we're schooled into thinking otherwise. And as long as everyone...
to not thinking.
Model, yeah.
Right. You're trained to school. They call it that way for a reason.
Yeah,
Kindergarten, childgarten.
To muse or to amuse. To muse is to think, overthink. To amuse is to not think, to not overthink. Amusement is meant for it, to never think at all. That's why TV exists. It's amusement, because as soon as you turn it on, you never can think because it thinks for you. I can't think myself as long as stupid images on.
That's why there's so much amusement on
Unlike
TV.
our hangouts, everybody goes away thinking masses.
That's the whole intent behind it.
Yeah. And that's why there's so much amusement on TV, to dumb down the people.
And on our channel, we've got real people doing it.
Yeah. No, I'm a computer. No, it's just a joke.
Oh, you're not real after all, artist.
No.
Oh, damn.
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 Just joking.
Very bad transfer.
Serious.
I'm just kidding around.
Can I just explain? We've been going for 3¼ hours. Do you want to go on a little bit longer, or do you think we've come to the point where we probably should like round up the hangout? Really?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
You can wind it up.
So, do you have anything to say then, guys?
Again, it was a great hangout with a lot of interesting topics and a lot of interesting videos. I liked it very much.
Yeah, I think the videos are brilliant tonight, guys. Thank you very much. And you've given me something else to think about now.
Yeah, how to make a hand fly around the house.
With this particular series, and that is free energy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't talked about that for a while now. And actually, it's a big part of what that ancient structure is mostly about. Their typical knowledge of free energy, of how they did it, and figure out what that is. The unexplored realm of Tesla, what Tesla and several others, less named, I guess. It's one of the water, free energy. It's so specific, tied to the old times of how they actually managed to do that on grand scale before they got destroyed by electricity.
Yeah.
Can I just say that Angel has told us that he's not going to be here next week, but we're going to carry on, and Artis is going to talk about that cave in Kefalonia series. I wrote it down. Read what that's the name of the title of the hangout tomorrow. So just read it out. That's going to be the title.
If I can read it.
You said it.
Yeah. But
Spirit. Hang on. Yeah, Matt. I can't even read my own writing now. Man is mind.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah, the first bit. Spirit is child and master.
Oh yeah, spirit is child and master. Man is mind.
That's the title of the hangout tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Spiritual stuff tomorrow. I don't know if you want to be on that one, Artis, as well.
I can. I don't know if I am free tomorrow.
Oh, well, I can sort that out with you afterwards. Anyway, as per usual, thank you so much, Angel. Angel, do you want to say anything before you go then? As you're not going to be here for 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Oh, especially have fun.
Yeah, have fun next week.
Yeah, have fun. And we will miss you, of course.
Yes, we will miss you, Angel.
Maybe in the after.
Yeah, maybe
well,
we'll.
If you send me a link, I might be able to hop on depending on what time frame what I'm doing works on.
Hey, we'll send you the link. I will email it to you. Artists, you anything to say before we go?
Not really. It was a great hangout. But I already told it.
Yeah, you already said that one. Anyway, so thank you very much, everybody, for being on this hangout. Thank you for everybody listening. We're back tomorrow. What is it again called?
Spirit is child and master, man is mind.
There you go. That's tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much, Artist and Angel, and everybody listening, watching the whole thing. Thank you. We got group hug. Group hug. Hug. Group hug for everybody. See you tomorrow.
Bye bye.